forego the flag salute, given that we are all in different locations and I don't know that there's a flag available. I would like to explain that, oh, you know what? I'm already not sure. Am I supposed to be doing this now, or does staff say something first?
No,
Oh,
you're
you
supposed
can,
to be
you,
doing it now.
Okay.
yeah, go.
Notice of this meeting and the agenda have been posted at the following locations: San Marino City Hall, San Marino Public Library, the San Marino Recreation Department, and on the City of San Marino website. Just a little background on the order of procedure for tonight. Each commissioner has received plans and staff comments on each of the items on the agenda tonight. And we have all visited each site to prepare for this meeting. The general order for hearing each case will be as follows. First, staff will discuss the case and provide background information and recommendations. Then the applicant or the applicant's representative will be asked to comment on the proposal. The hearing will then be open to the public for comment. And then after public comment, and that will generally follow the rule of 3 minutes per person. So please be succinct in your comments. If you hear something that you agree with, there is from a previous speaker, there's no need to restate that information. You can just simply say that you agree with the previous speaker. But if you have something new to add, please do so. If you do ask to address the commission as a member of the public, you will need to provide your name and address when speaking on an item. Well, I already said that, be clear and succinct. At the conclusion of public comments, the public hearing will be closed, and then we will go into discussion amongst the commission. There will be no further public comment at that time. I know that in the past, there has sometimes been a chance for applicants to sort of give a rebuttal after public comment. I will just give you advance notice that I am not likely to allow that. If you have done your job as an applicant and have contacted people in your neighborhood to discuss your project, you should already be aware of possible objections that they have, and you should be able to provide information about that when you do your presentation. Most of the cases tonight will involve variances, conditional use permits, and or design review. We will discuss and act on each one individually. In each case, variances will be discussed and considered first, then conditional use permits, and then finally design review. If there is no motion for approval or denial, the commission has the option of continuing an application to a future meeting. If a proposal is denied or continued, it is hoped that the applicant will have heard comments during the public comment period and during the commission's deliberations that will be useful in resubmitting an application. It is important for the property owner to understand that once a project is approved by the commission, the drawings become legal documents. If any changes are made to the project subsequent to approval without obtaining proper approval of those changes, the property owner is in fact breaking the law. There is a risk of having to change the project back to the originally approved design or paying a fine to the city of San Marino equal to the greater of 5% of the project valuation or $2,500, and then resubmitting the changes to the commission for approval. It is also important to understand that there's a 15-day appeal period after action has been taken, and the applicant or any interested party can request city council to review and act on the case via appeal. The commission will usually take items in the order shown on the agenda. Occasionally, we will take them out of order if there are a large number of people on one item. That item may be taken ahead of others as a courtesy to those present. The commission will not start any new items after 11 p.m. Items not heard will be carried over to an adjourned meeting or the next regularly scheduled meeting. Director Cervantes, do you anticipate there's any items on the agenda that we need to take out of order?
Not at all, Chair.
Okay. With that, then, let's start with agenda item number 1, update and discussion regarding the San Marino Center renovation project.
Chair, if I may, if we can go backwards a little bit and do the public comment.
Oh, yes. Is that on my sheet? Oh, yes, it is. Yeah, this is public comment for any item not on the agenda tonight. So if there's any member of the public who would like to address the commission on an issue that is under our purview, now is the time to do so. I'll let staff explain how you can indicate that you wish to make a public comment.
Yes, and if you'd like to make a comment during this portion of the meeting or at different portions of this agenda and meeting, you can use the raise hand feature that's built into the Zoom platform. You can also use the chat that's at the bottom of the screen. You can type in your request or your comments, and we'll read them to the public. If you like to, again, at this time or during any portion of the public hearing sessions for each item, you can use the raise hand feature, which can be activated by clicking on the participants link at the bottom of your screen. It'll pop up on the right-hand side of the screen, all the participants. Find yourself. It'll allow for you to raise your hand using that part of the Zoom platform. So again, anyone who wishes to address the Planning Commission on items not on the agenda can certainly request that at this moment. Give me a second, Chair. I don't see anyone with a raised hand at this moment. Nothing at this point, Chair.
Okay. Then let's move on to agenda. I'll close the public comment period portion of the meeting, and we'll move on to agenda item number 1, update and discussion regarding the San Marino Center renovation project.
Chair, have we had taken roll call yet? I just thought procedurally we had taken roll call.
Yes. Can we have roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Brody?
Here.
Commissioner Chang?
Here.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Alternate Commissioner Okazaki? I see him on the screen.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Ross?
I'm here.
I see him there. Vice Chair Boyle? I just saw her. I know she's here.
She's
There she
mute.
is. Yeah, and Chair Dustin, I see you there. Okay. So introducing item number 1 will be myself. This is, as the chair mentioned, is an update and discussion regarding the San Marino Center renovation project. As most of you know, the city has undertaken a project that includes the renovation of the San Marino Center. We've been going through a very robust public outreach program for the last couple of months. We've approached the council on a couple of occasions as well to get some guidance and direction. And the last set of direction provided to the council was a couple of months ago. Prior to getting into the details of the staff report, I do want to introduce some of my colleagues. Dr. Marcella Marlowe, our city manager, of course. We have Parks and Public Works Director Michael Throne. We also have Rick Crane, who is the architect for the project. Also helping with this project, of course, is Amanda Fowler, Community Engagement Manager, and also Amanda Merlo, who is also the acting Community Engagement Manager on this project as well. So diving back into the details of this specific item, at the September 25th, 2020 City Council meeting, the council provided staff and the architect with some very key guidance to help the project move forward. And this guidance included architectural style of the building, which ended up being a Spanish influence to match the Kroll Public Library. There was a direction provided on kitchen facilities, the entry of the restroom facilities, and the usage of the projector room. There are other more pertinent decisions as it relates to the Planning Commission was with regards to the architectural style of the building. The majority of the council voted to approve the style, as I mentioned, with clear direction to move forward on a Spanish building that essentially takes the existing building and seeks to mimic the style of the Kroll Public Library in terms of finishes, architectural features, and materials. Prior to the conclusion of this item at that City Council meeting, a motion was made to provide the Planning Commission with the opportunity to review this project. The council directed staff to provide the Planning Commission with the architectural plans, which we provided, to conduct a very narrow review of this project with respect to 4 items, and that's window placement, exterior lighting, the size of the doors and windows, and light angles. The council did also express that they weren't looking for a full review, as the Planning Commission is very well versed at doing at these kind of projects, but really looking at those 4 items that I just discussed. And so moving into the direction of the 4 items as addressed in the staff report, pages 2 and 3, the Planning Commission essentially is tasked to discuss here tonight the windows and doors in terms of placements, appearances, exterior lighting, although we have not decided on the details of exterior lighting. There are light angles, of course, with respect to, again, as it relates to exterior light fixtures, both landscaping and parking lighting, as well as, of course, lighting for the building. And so in the staff report, I provided some details that will help the Planning Commission sort of start off the discussion of these 4 items. And windows and doors, fairly quickly here, we have directed the architect to add windows in the existing openings of the building, with the exception of one pair of doors, and that is the main entry of, at least the proposed one of the main entries to the building, which is going to be accessed via a canopy that is fronting Huntington Drive that leads public into a existing lobby. The existing double pair of doors that are also facing Huntington Drive that everyone knows exist now will remain as part of the design of the project. Staff has provided some guidance as to exterior lighting. The building code does mandate exterior lighting at any entry or exit of the building. And so any location that is provided with doors will be provided with some source of lighting. It's also worth noting that there is a path of travel that leads from the entry points of the building to the parking lot. We should be discussing light fixtures that help guide pedestrians down those paths during the evening hours. And so with that said, I provided again some details to help with the discussion of this project. And so again, those are the 4 items: windows and door placements, exterior lighting, and light angles. So at this point, Chair, I'd like to open up the discussion for the Planning Commission to help provide guidance to staff, guidance to the architect, and provide comments and suggestions to the City Council. Chair, you're muted.
Do we approach this like me calling on people, or can we have just more of a free form discussion?
It's up to you, Chair, how you want to handle this. You can certainly treat it as a normal Planning Commission project where after staff presentation, you ask questions of staff. And then following that, you can ask questions of the public and then go into your sort of roundtable discussion.
Okay. What I'd like to do is just go through and ask each commissioner just if they have any questions for staff at this point. And hopefully those questions will then sort of lead into a more free-form discussion. I don't know that I want to call on people individually to give their comments on the project, but does anyone have questions for staff?
Oh, wait, am I still on? No. Okay, sorry, my dogs were barking, so I don't know if I was on mute or not, but I do have a general question. I don't know if anybody else does. I'll just keep talking. So, Director Cervantes, I am curious because the first time this was brought forward to us, we were told that our original comments were just because what was being presented to us at this time was direction with regards to the architectural style. And so not to wreak havoc, but you know, that's my style. I am really curious to just know, has there been further community outreach with regards to this project in its totality? And what I mean by that, I know that there was a large contingency of the community that didn't want this to go on at all. They felt that it was a waste of money, that it was not the right time because we were in the middle of COVID to spend all of this, and maybe the money should be spent in other ways. And I'm just wondering, has that been revisited at all? Or it seemed to me that there was enough of a community outcry that it should have been revisited. And I'm just curious to know, is it going to be, has it been, or is this just like, we are just moving forward with this and we have to make design decisions?
Yeah, well, I will say that that public outreach is sort of never at a conclusion. I guess folks
Right.
can always sort of let us know how they feel about the project. But most importantly here in this case, as you stated at the very end of your statement there, the city is sort of moving on with this project. It's a direction that we were given by the council at the September 25th meeting, where they expressed interest in moving forward with this project in terms of this is going to be the architectural style. This is the placement of the kitchen. And so, you know, without getting into further details, but even prior to that meeting, we've had council meetings where there was more direction given to sort of help frame the project. And so we are, in essence, based off direction of council, moving forward with the project. We're just seeking guidance from the Planning Commission, since you're really the subject matter experts on architectural style, including that of the DRC. And so with that said, I think the council also felt that, you know, in having this kind of a meeting, we continue to open the door for the public to sort of still participate in this process. But again, here, the direction is a very narrow scope here, and that's just really focusing on those 4 items.
Okay, thank you. I mean, and I only bring it up just because I know that there have been a lot of op-eds in the Tribune, and there's been a lot of other commentary with regards to this. And so I want to give the clarity to anybody who's listening that our role is not whether to give direction to City Council to move forward with this or not. We are moving forward with it. And now it's our role to give architectural, or to give our design evaluation based on our knowledge on the subject.
That's correct, but really
Okay.
focusing on the 4 items that we discussed. Yeah.
Thank you.
That was helpful to sort of lay out the parameters of our discussion tonight. So that being said, anyone want to chime in with their thoughts on the project?
Well,
If I may add one thing, sorry, Commissioner Wright. If I may add, I did neglect to mention during my update was that the city is also looking to undertake a sort of a thorough CEQA process with this project, and so we are sort of at the beginning stages of really what that looks like. And so those of you who are familiar with the CEQA process, there are all types of avenues that the city can take with respect to this project in CEQA. There's sort of an overall exemption to the project. There's mitigation measures. There's looking at and it gets very technical, and I won't bore you with the technicalities of this thing, but it's certainly, and I can go on and on about CEQA, but I certainly won't. But it's you know, just to let the public understand, and also the Planning Commission understand that there's this is not and this gets to Commissioner Vice Chair Boyle's comment that, you know, are we done moving on? We are still kind of vetting the project from a status and process perspective. And so, and that's what I meant by the CEQA aspect of this. And so we are at the beginning stages of that to see what that looks like. But again, we're going down this path here to really determine what the project is. And again, for those who are familiar with CEQA, that's a major component to which direction you go towards is project description. And so we're still at that stage. So Commissioner Wright, sorry for interrupting, go ahead.
No, that's fine. CEQA can be a very long process too, of course, and even includes statement of overriding considerations. So I'll be very interested in what the city decides based on the project description and the analysis. CEQA's tough. But as far as what's in front of us, I frankly have felt kind of frustrated by it. When I looked at it, I was, oh, you know, what are we supposed to be doing here? They haven't picked the lights yet. I'm not exactly sure what light angles mean, especially when you haven't picked the lights. Windows and doors are going to go in the same spot. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure at this stage, and especially with Director Cervantes just was talking about, we haven't even done CEQA. I'm not exactly sure what and how I can contribute anyway. Maybe other commissioners feel differently, and I hope you do. You know, you can contribute more. But for me, I didn't feel there was a whole lot I could contribute at this stage.
And if I may, Chair, to sort of help the discussion move forward, I remind the Planning Commission and the public that the inspiration towards this project is clear from the council's perspective. It's mimicking the Kroll Public Library. And so if you look at the plans that were provided in terms of the windows, for example, is taking the window design on the library and mimicking that or introducing that to this building. And so you can see the window breakage in terms of where the mullions and muttons are located. With respect to lighting, again, looking at the library for inspiration, what kind of lighting that building has will likely also be introduced into this building. The key thing is where does the lighting go? Are the window styles appropriate for this building, even though we're mimicking that of the Kroll Public Library? And so that's sort of the discussion here. And of course, light angles, the only interpretation that I can make as to what that means is that, as I discussed in the staff report, is in lighting path of travels, ensuring that any parking lot lighting is provided with shielding to prevent light spillage and light pollution. And so that's kind of what I suspect what that means. And so I hope that can at least help with the discussion a bit.
Yeah, I guess I feel like this is a little premature to cover that.
If I may jump in here for a moment. I find it kind of difficult to make any kind of a judgment on a piecemeal design. We don't have the whole picture in front of us. We don't have the landscaping. We just have windows and doors to look at. And we don't know how that would really impact the totality of the design and how it will eventually be presented. So I feel like I'm treading on swampland here by making any kind of a determination.
I'll offer up my 2 cents for what it's worth. Given that we have such a narrow, tailored scope of review that we've been asked to do and only look at doors and windows at this point, as there's nothing else provided, the windows specifically on the north elevation and the east elevation, window number 5, I know that's supposed to replicate the style of the north elevation of the library. I think it's not appropriate and fitting, given that if you look at the library, that style of window is in progression over the course of 5, 10, 8 windows, as opposed to elevations on the east and north elevation. One is a single and another is a double. So I think it's not going to provide the same effect and appearance as the architect intends in order to properly replicate and model after what the Crowell Library has. So for what I can offer, I'd say that that elevation I have specific issues with. If I'm only talking about windows, I feel like it's not gonna, it won't really fall in line with compatibility of the library. If you look at the library, it's very clear that you have a whole swath of glazing across the entirety of the north elevation, which I think this does not achieve. Now, if you were to add 2 additional windows in the east elevation and, you know, another 1.5 additional windows on the north elevation, I think you might be able to start to accomplish what that elevation inspiration provides in informing from the library. Otherwise, you know, one thing I do see that's deficient that we would like to see as well as a signage plan or design that's going to be critical and integral in evaluating for, you know, just designation and wayfinding and how that's illuminated, if it is illuminated, such as the Crowell Library. So I think there's things that need to be worked. Again, because our analysis is so narrowed and tailored, specific to what the City Council has asked of us, or the Director Cervantes, you're asking of our input. That's about all I can give.
May I
Sure.
add to that? So along with what Commissioner Chang has said, like I actually had issues with the west elevation. And again, I don't know what the landscaping is going to be like, but it seemed like that was a lot of direct sunlight on a portion of the building that was, I don't even know what to say. It just seemed like it's kind of this balance. Like there didn't seem to be a lot of windows that I felt like with all of that cement that it would have like, you know, a heat effect, that a heat load that may have to be balanced out. But then at the same time, knowing that there might, you know, the only other option is to put windows in there. I know that that's also engineering a heat load that would have to be addressed. So again, my problems with the west elevation had a lot to do with like, I'm not sure what the landscaping would be like to kind of add a cooling effect, but it just seemed like a lot of solid mass that would add to a heat load that I thought that either, you know, that the AC or something was going to have to accommodate for. And only along those lines, because Director Cervantes, I forgot to ask you, is this building going to, is it going to have solar panels on it because of the 2020 law?
Yeah, not this
Just call it
building.
2020 law. I don't know, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty much, it was adopted in 2020 by the state.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not going to be a requirement for the building, being that the building is a renovation.
Right.
It only applies to new construction.
So is there any way, I mean, is there any way, as we are looking at the revitalization of this building and the renovation of this building, to make it a bit more LEED certified and climate compatible? Because we are, I mean, I don't know what the other commissioners believe, but I fully believe that we are dealing with a climate crisis that needs to be addressed, and new buildings are a detriment to that. So is there any way, as we move forward, again, I know it's not in the scope of what we're talking about, but I would just like to add that it would be, I personally would be much more receptive to this building, knowing that there was going to be some movement towards LEED certification and eco-friendliness. I guess that's just a comment at this point, so you can take it as a comment. You don't have to address it. It's just something that I would like to add.
No, it's a great comment, and certainly we can. We're taking notes here, and any comments, again, I know we're focusing on 3 items, or actually 4 items, but comments that you make here can certainly be provided to the council, and we'll see how they sort of direct us in moving forward with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, just one thing, even a preliminary sketch with a rough landscaping plan would have helped.
Mhm.
Commissioner Okazaki or Commissioner Ross, do you have any thoughts you'd like to share?
I would like to think that, I'm sorry, Jim.
Well, I was going to say that
what we do as a commission is typically review and comment on what the owner and the architect have done. And given the instructions of the city council, instead of us coming up with guidelines, I would like to see the architect interpret the instructions of the city council and come up with the design, both landscape and the exterior, the windows and the doors and the lighting, and present it to us for comments and concurrence. I would like to request that rather than us making any specific comments now.
Thank you. Commissioner Ross?
Well, I think that some of these things that we're asked to address are a little bit too detailed for.
Very much
for this,
appreciate it. Now, up
commission.
next, how many?
The fact that we're not architects and that we don't have the final.
Plus congressional candidate.
I'm getting some interference. Anyway, I think it's been all said. I just wanted to iterate that this is a little too detailed for, I think, the planning commission to really comment on seriously.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got just a few brief comments. I share the frustration mentioned by Commissioners Wright and Brody. I'm not really clear on the usefulness of this task. I mean, I kind of understand why City Council sent it to us for some expertise commentary, but I mean, just to give you an example, we're being asked to discuss 4 design elements: windows, doors, exterior lighting, and light angles. Well, 2 of those really are not discussable because we don't have a lighting plan. We don't know what kind of fixtures, other than they'd like to be like the ones on the library. So really, we're sort of down to windows and doors. And then when you look at the plans that were provided, they really are not the kind of plans that we're used to looking at. They're sort of a halfway between an elevation and a rendering. There's a lot of shading on there to show, what shade lines might look like, but those shade lines obscure what some of the doors would look like and where they're positioned. So it was very, very difficult for me to really sort of get a sense of anything specific, like Commissioner Ross mentioned. So I'll just make some general comments. I do agree with the idea of matching the fenestration of the San Marino Center to that of the library. I think that's one of the best ways to sort of create a congruence between the 2 structures, is to have the fenestration complement each other. I'm okay with the door placements, at least as far as I can tell where they're going to be from the design drawings. I mean, again, these plans don't have any details. We don't have any fixture information. We don't have any materials designated or anything like that. So as far as lighting is concerned, I mean, again, I would agree with the general concept that, I went over and looked at the library. I looked at the external lights that they have around that building, and I think that those would be suitable for this application.
Yeah, okay.
Where they would be placed, that, that's just a real, some of them are the placement is mandated by the building code, but others, you can't really make more than a general comment. Like you said, Director Cervantes, I would want them to pay attention to shielding lighting appropriately so we don't add to light pollution in the area. But clearly you want to have adequate lighting for access and safety from the parking lot on pathways to and from. So beyond that, I really don't see how much more we can really contribute. That's sort of what I have to say. And if anybody has anything else to say,
if I may, I do appreciate the comments that the commission has provided to me and staff. I do understand and share the frustration, of course, with, in general, having a set of plans that are essentially not complete. And of course, we deal with that almost every month sometimes. And the task here, of course, is to ask the Planning Commission to really focus on 4 items where some of the details may not be there entirely. And so I do want to share with the Planning Commission that we did have throughout the processing and designing of this project a task force that was assigned by the a little bit of the council, of course, some help with staff, of course, with that respect. And some of you may recognize the names of Jennifer Giles and Raymond Chang amongst a few of them that helped help us, with that task force responsibilities and duties. And so we had a number of great individuals, local professionals, to help us guide us down this path that we are today. But again, as I mentioned in a number of occasions, we are at the exploratory stage of this project, although we do have a very specific direction moving forward. And so there's certain, I would argue that there's a lot of pieces and a lot of moving parts to this project, and we'll certainly get there. And if there's an opportunity, of course, to come back to the Planning Commission with more details, we'll certainly look at that in the near future. But at this point, this is where we are. And again, the comments that you have provided tonight are valuable. Again, our architect is on the call, so as well as some staff, and we've been taking notes, and we'll certainly relay this message to the council.
Okay, thank you. Well, I hope the little that we've given you was helpful. Anything else from any of the commissioners before we move on? Okay, then let's move on to agenda item number 2, variance number V19-07 and conditional use permit CUP 20-13 at the 2285 Huntington Drive location. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. Conditional use permit 20-13 and variance number 19-07 is a request to operate a medical office within an existing commercial building with less than the required parking spaces required for a medical use pursuant to the San Marino City Code. Based on this request, this application requires 1 conditional use permit for medical use and 1 parking variance. San Marino Urgent Care will provide ambulatory and outpatient care via virtual and on-site appointments, as well as on a walk-in basis. Staffing will be limited to 2 individuals, including a physician and administrative personnel. Days and hours of operation for the proposed use are Monday through Sunday between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. The proposed medical use will be located in an 880 square foot tenant space of an existing multi-tenant building, which is the former location of San Marino Cleaners. Pursuant to section 23.10.03A of the San Marino City Code, the proposed use requires 3 parking spaces calculated at 1 space per 250 square foot of floor space. The site includes a total of 20 spaces. Based on the requirements in the code, this presents a shortage of 35 spaces. Parking demand for the previous use was 2 spaces as prescribed for retail service and sales and operated under a legal non-conforming status, which is applicable only to retail service and sales uses similar to the previous use. Staff conducted a week-long parking survey on the site and found that there were no less than 9 available parking spaces at any given time, and an average of 11 spaces throughout the week. Based on the findings required to grant a conditional use permit and variance, staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit and variance and adoption of resolution PCR 20-17. I would also like to note that staff did receive numerous concerns over the operation of the business, and the applicant for the proposed use is available to answer any of those questions.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff?
Yeah, I was wondering, the fact that there's only 20 parking spaces there and 58 spaces are required, why?
You're muted, James.
We can't hear you, Commissioner Okazaki.
Sorry, I got muted, excuse me. So 20 spaces are there physically. And
Correct.
you're saying there's 58 spaces needed.
Based on the code, yes.
Yeah, so how did the city council approve such a usage? It just seems so divergent that you need 58 spaces, there's only 20 spaces, unless you're allowing a whole bunch of parking on the street, or that there is a lot of parking on the street. I just don't see how you could give such a variance of less than 50% parking needs.
Well, I can give a little history on that, Commissioner. This is dating back to 1995 when Starbucks was approved to take over the corner location, which I believe was a prior flower shop for many years. And so in order to allow Starbucks as a restaurant to occupy that building, and mind you, all the other buildings were already in place, plus that parking lot. And so when Starbucks as a restaurant was approved, it was approved with a variance to deviate from the parking requirements. And so that's why you see physically 22 parking spaces where the code actually requires 58 spaces. That sort of was the beginning of sort of dealing with the property with an insufficient amount of parking for the property. But that being said, the variance has been in place for many, many years. There are very detailed conditions of approval that are held on Starbucks to allow them to operate on that location. And so now, of course, getting away from the Starbucks discussion, that's sort of the history as to why there's so many sort of demanding businesses where there's a very small parking lot. And so I will say that the prior use where the medical office is looking to go into was a cleaners. And so the parking requirements for the cleaners was the same as the parking requirements for this proposed medical use. It's merely a technicality here where the parking for the cleaners was 3, and the parking requirement for this medical use is also 3. But the parking variance is required again because, as you know, there's just not a sufficient amount of parking for the lot.
I would just like to clarify that the parking required for the cleaners was actually 2 spaces, 1 less than will be required here.
Go ahead.
I have a question. I am very curious as it pertains to the parking. I know that you did a parking study, but or parking survey. My question is that obviously you did this, I guess it's directed to Marlon. You did this parking survey during COVID-19 safer at home restrictions. There's a part of me that feel like I'm going to say that my gut instinct tells me that that's a very inadequate parking survey. So I want to know, were you able to compare any parking survey data to past parking survey data like a year ago today in terms of the congestion that parking lot receives in a pre-COVID timeframe? Did you do any statistical analysis between the two?
That was something that was certainly taken into consideration when undertaking the survey. Unfortunately, we do not have any data available for shortage of parking or what the parking situation was like prior to COVID. This was not something that there have been no new uses requested at the site for some time where this would have been required.
Okay.
I understand that based on the current COVID situation that
Right.
there would be lesser demand based on inability for indoor dining at both Starbucks and the other restaurant establishment at the location.
Yeah.
But I did feel it was necessary to provide a picture of what the current parking situation is like given the current circumstances.
So, and the only reason I want to bring this into, and maybe I'll wait until it's discussion time, but I'm going to say roughly 1.5 years, 2 years ago, we had Starbucks in particular come for us for a renewal of their CUP, and we talked a lot about the parking congestion. So I do feel as though there was enough data to look back in history with regards to the parking congestion from other CUPs that have, you know, come to us from Starbucks within the last few years. So it seems to me that there was data available with regards to the congestion. So So I find it interesting that your parking survey during COVID showed that it was no problem.
Right, and unfortunately, I was unaware of that that request for updating the variance 2 years ago. That's something I can certainly go back and look into.
Okay, thank you, Marlon.
Anyone else have questions for staff? I have just one if no one else has a question. I was just a little curious at the top.
You lost volume.
You're muted.
Sorry. At the top of page 3 of the staff report, there's a paragraph that or a section that I'm not unsure about. Wait, let me see here. No, that's not the right page. Hold on. Give me a second here. Yes. The last sentence there on the top of page 3, but in no event less than 2 for every doctor or dentist regularly engaged in practice on the site. Does that mean that even with a variance or a conditional use permit, you could not permit a medical office with fewer than 2 spaces? Am I reading that right?
If you read further on the previous page, that section only applies to properties on Mission Street.
Okay, but on Mission Street, you could not get approval for a medical office with less than 2 spaces. Am I reading that right?
No less than 2 spaces per doctor. That's correct.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Those are, I think, all the questions that we have for staff at this time. Is the applicant or the applicant's representative available? If so, please state your name and address and give us your presentation.
Hello, good evening. My name is Ted Long. I'm speaking on behalf of the proposed application for 2285 Huntington Drive, San Marino, California, 91108. I am born and raised in the city of San Marino, went to Carver, went to Huntington, went to San Marino High, left, went to school, came back, worked in the emergency room, and it's always been a lifelong dream of mine to come back and really give back to the community. It gave so much to me. In the months of anticipation for this hearing, I've been able to do my own community outreach to the schools and to previous faculty members that I've encountered and classmates and alumni, and really just let them know of my approach and what I plan to do for the city of San Marino by creating a medical office.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant?
I do.
Go ahead.
Your business plan specifically states that you want to be available to the residents for off hours of other medical facilities, but then you say that your hours reflect that it'll only be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah.
That seems I don't know the word I'm coming. It doesn't seem, it seems contradictory. So because if you're available from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., that is the same time that medical facilities are available. So do you have in your long-term 5-year to 10-year plan, do you have the idea that you would be open longer hours to accommodate the community as well as the community at large?
Thank you so much for bringing up such a great concern. Absolutely. So in that statement in my business plan, what I do mean is that operations from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. will be our brick and mortar, our walk-ins, our same-day appointments, our anything acute, anything non-emergent that may benefit from an immediate visit will be available. However, being available beyond 7 p.m., we still plan to do on an online virtual platform. I've already established an account using Solv, S-O-L-V, which allows our website which allows a website for people to log in online, enter their demographic information, register, and really get in contact with me or a medical team for an on-site visit, for a virtual online visit. So that's
But
what I'm
if somebody needs triage care after 7 p.m. and they're logging on online, are you going to go and open up your facility, or are you going to send them to a competitor urgent care?
So typically speaking, having 5 years experience in doing this and running several urgent cares in my history, when a patient logs on, based on their chief complaints, based on their concerns, if it's something that I can't address, typically I would send them right over to the emergency room if it was life-threatening. However, if it was anything else that I could send in a prescription, talk to them about, or really, probably conduct like a visual examination over a virtual platform, I'll be more than gladly to treat then and there. But for example, if it was a laceration to the hand or anything, or a slip and fall, a slip and fall, I could still conduct an inspection visually and to get a great history from the patient. But if it was something that needed my touch, probably depending on the time frame, I could allow them to come in at 7 a.m. or, I'm quite local, so I definitely would keep in mind as well.
So what you're saying is you are not necessarily committing to only having your hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If they are online and you are local and they are local, you would be willing to open your doors beyond your listed hours to invite them into your office at, let's say, 10 p.m.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely hope to go to 24 hours one day. I mean, it's just because right now in light of the COVID situation, I was just, I'm not really too.
So at this location, your ultimate goal is to be a 24-hour urgent care clinic.
That's the dream, someday, somehow.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Yes, Commissioner Okazaki.
Yeah, so how do you handle a large number of walk-in clients, walk-in patients? I mean, what are we talking about when you have hours of 7 to 7? How many walk-ins are we talking about? And if, are you going to have a lineup of people coming in, walking in? I mean, you have no control over the crowd, right? I mean, how do you handle the large crowd and their parking needs?
So thank you for the great concern, Commissioner. So one of the ways I address this in my experience is that our urgent care or our medical facility will be very specific in terms of the types of insurances that we accept. So one of which is that, like, for example, straight Medi-Cal is not something I plan to become contracted with. So therefore, a lot of that crowd will not be coming in. But if we were to use standards from the American Association of Urgent Cares, the average urgent care at a 5-year operations brings in about anywhere between 4 to 6 patients per hour. Within the first 2 years, I do not foresee seeing more than 2 per hour on a walk-in basis, if we even get to that point. And it is our goal to create 50% virtual visits and 50% brick and mortar physical on-site visits. And that is the trend that we're going on. I've done my research. According to a study conducted by the Annals of Emergency Medicine, since March till June, ambulatory acute care visits on an outpatient setting has declined by 82% because of COVID. So a lot of brick and mortar offices are going out of business.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, why do I want to open a clinic when everyone's closing down? It's because now's the time to give back to the community and really stand by San Marino and really be a safe haven for everyone here. I mean, growing up, I grew up across the street. And I remember as a kid, I fell running a track meet in Huntington and there was nowhere to go. My mom said, you either go to the ER at Huntington or we go to the ER at Arcadia. Where do you want to go? And I remember thinking, oh no, I'm scared. So it's just across the street. So for me, it speaks to the heart. I would love to, really be there and, control the type of amount of influx that we get, using our high caliber platforms, encouraging our patients to register online, do virtual visits, really keeping parking in mind, to not really respect that, in light of knowing that there are the challenges that we face with the parking there, so it is a rising trend of emerging virtual visits. And I do plan to further pursue that route as well as being available there. And so, it's definitely not a concern of mine, but I do believe that it is very common for any startup urgent cares within the first 5 years they call it the ramp up years. And so typically up until 60 months, you won't really hit anywhere near your peak. And based on, we're only accepting very limited insurances. So we're really not expecting to really capitalize on volume. My main focus for our clinic is primarily concierge, high quality premium care to our community, to our citizens, and to our residents of our, the heart of hearts of our community. So that's why I'm not too concerned about volume.
Sort of like a boutique.
Yeah, it's like a boutique urgent care.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But I've been to urgent care, and every time I've gone to urgent care, if I've had to wait an hour or longer, there's always 20 to 30 people there. So, and here you say you're not going to have more than 2 people per hour. It's anyway, it's kind of unbelievable for me.
Yeah.
Imagine a medical facility without a line. There's always a line at a medical facility that I've been to.
Okay, yeah, so I would say a lot of those facilities that typically are high influx volume are Medi-Cal based, and I'm not pursuing the route of Medi-Cal Medicare. I'm pursuing strictly commercial insurances or private pay. Yeah, so that excludes about 80% of the general population for an urgent care. So that's my approach.
I can't go to your facility then.
I'll see you there.
Are there any other questions for the applicant?
No, I have a question. So would you be in the immediate future, if you were to open the clinic, would you be conducting or having some type of COVID testing being offered?
That's a great question. Actually, I have great connections with the first company that was on the news, named as formerly known as Quidel, that conducts the 15-minute rapid swab test. So I do plan to offer COVID testing. However, in light of the parking situation, based on my staffing grid and based on my staff to patient ratio, I do not plan to allow more than 2 COVID tests per hour, only in the sense that, it takes less than 3 minutes to do the test. However, the remainder of the time, I provide patient education, assess them appropriately, get the vital signs or triage. But it really is such a sensitive matter that I do think that patients sometimes they don't want to go in. So have a contract with, you give the patient the swab. They can go, you can hand it to them in the car, they can swab themselves in the car, or even just spit in a cup, and then they can give it to our nurse, and that's it, you're done. And the rest of the visit is done on a virtual basis, So yes, we do plan to offer COVID testing. Limited.
Okay. Yeah. Well, fortunately I work also in the healthcare realm, and that I understand what you're trying to accomplish and to serve and give back to the community. However, there's a lot of, with what you just described, there's a lot of hygiene and infectious control issues with having potential COVID patients leaving your facility, going back to their car, spitting or getting bodily fluids, and then bringing it back. So it wouldn't work, but I applaud your entrepreneurial spirit. 2, I wanted to ask, if you had a line out the door with patients that are either cash pay, private pay, or the insurance you do accept, are you going to turn patients away and tell them to go home? Are you only going to let the number of people allowed in your waiting area of 2 chairs or 3 chairs in? And is that what you're limiting your clientele, to your patients to, because that kind of defeats the purpose of urgent care. So I just want to understand better, theoretically and hypothetically, I think it's a admirable proposition. However, the actual, operational functionality of it is going to be quite a challenge. So if you can speak to that, or if you can share some insight of what you envision, because you don't have, when you are in urgent care, you don't have control over the number of folks that come to your clinic. That's the whole purpose of the urgent care.
Absolutely.
Right. So given and I see your preliminary concept floor plan, I don't know how large your examination rooms are or what your clinical program is, but it's going to be, you're not going to be able to have, a good number of patients or waiting patients within the clinic. So they're going to be waiting somewhere else. And I just have concerns of how operationally you're going to function, if you're more successful than you even imagine.
Absolutely. So that's definitely a great concern. So you're right. I don't have control about the number of patients that come to us. And I do hope that there's a high influx of patients. But what I do have control over is the caliber of medical professionals and nursing staff that I bring on board. So I work in the emergency room. I have a team of emergency room doctors coming on board as well, all of which, are really trained. And we don't just hire anyone and everyone. We actually go from people that are highly recommended. We look at like efficiency and performance statistics, key performance indicators. I myself take pride in running the urgent cares that I did for the last 3 years prior to COVID. And one of the things that we do, every patient that comes in urgent care, our goal is to provide you with the shortest visit possible. And so with that said, of course, we cannot predict the type of patients are coming in, but we would never refuse or turn away a patient. We would work to our size, we would work to our volume. And, if needs be, we would definitely never compromise the quality of care in order to, ease the waiting room,
But if I heard correctly, you're only looking to staff it with one physician and one MA or one PA, right?
Correct. But if you read my business plan, that's only within the first 6 months. First 6 months to a year or so.
Okay.
And then,
and we understand. Okay.
So so in the national standard, according to the Urgent Cares Association of America, is that 0.75 staff members per patient is the equivalent of what we should do. And from a financial perspective, from an operations perspective, this is key. And especially since we do plan to be virtual at times as well, it really allows us the opportunity to really gauge, especially right now, and be flexible to provide staff.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Vong, I have sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Is it Vong?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, I have another question for you, given the discussion you had with Commissioner Chang. And Commissioner Chang, I first want to say thank you for bringing up the points that you did, because I also come from the medical community, and some of my background is getting physicians JCO certified for their surgery centers. So you brought up that you want to have a team of the best physicians within the first 6 months, but you are also asking us to allow for a variance for 3 parking spots where you have 2 individuals working at a time. Where are those 2 individuals or more within 6 months per your business plan going to be parking, if you only have 3 spots available to you?
So ideally, they would be parking on the lot, but right behind the urgent care as well, or right behind the Starbucks I believe on Mission Street, there's a huge parking lot that's available, public parking that is available. I know times, we do plan to have, especially in the near future, to have more than 2 staff or 2 parking spots taken up at a time.
Do you think that you would allow for compensation for the city for the parking spaces that you would be taking away from the public, given the fact that your staff would be parking there for 8 to 12 hours?
That's definitely something open for discussion. Absolutely. But I do think that I spent ample amounts of time in this property, and in my evaluation of and speaking to other staff members. In the rear, there's where all the Starbucks employees, all the UPS employees, all the Garnish Cafe employees, and the formerly Sloan's Cleaners, San Marino Cleaners, everyone parked in that lot on Mission Street in the back, that worked in that building, only to allow ample parking for customers and clientele. So that's definitely a model we plan to follow along with everyone else.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for the applicant from the commission? I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get a handle on what type of a business you're wanting to open. I have to say I'm a little bit surprised to hear that you're not planning on limiting it to the 2 clinicians that are in your business plan.
But I mean, okay, sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you mean limiting to 2 at any specific time, or?
Well, that's the impression that your business plan gave.
Yeah, so that is it. Like, I would never have more than 1 provider on at a time. No, that would not happen. So it would just be, if I ever needed more staff, then that would be another discussion to have. But, I think that, like, in terms of like medical providers, like physicians and such, there would always be 1 if that was the case. And then one nurse to do front and back office. So,
so you talked about hiring additional clinicians, because again, your business plan gave the impression that it was you.
Yeah, if I went home, someone else would be there. Yeah.
But your business plan gave the impression that it was you and your business partner who would be the clinicians providing coverage, but that apparently is not the case. You would be hiring additional clinicians, is that correct?
In the event, they are all local. They are all like what we call per diem, meaning that they would cover in the event that a full timer, like such as myself, is not there or not available. Let's say I was hit by a car and it needed to be open the next day. Instead of patient abandonment, we would have another provider who was on staff who would come and cover. Yes.
So barring that type of special circumstance where you were on vacation or you were ill, it would be the 2 clinicians noted on the business plan who would be covering the hours.
Correct.
Can you give me an idea of the percentage of coverage time that how you would cover that?
Yeah. So typically, like for our rough schedule, along with my budget planning, each of us plan to tank about to work like 12 shifts in a row, and then the other clinician would work 12 shifts in a row, and then we would just take turns. So pretty much it's what we refer to as shift work.
And I'm a little confused on your business plan. Hold on a minute, give me a check. I gotta scroll through here to find it. On your business plan, under the target market section, where it says key customers, it says, while open 7 days a week with extended hours, San Marino residents will be given priority to set on-demand or same-day virtual or on-site appointments prior to their scheduled appointment times. I'm confused by that. Can you clarify what that means in the urgent care arena?
So pretty much for San Marino residents, if we wanted to go ahead and provide like immediate prompt concierge care, so in the event that there was any non-life-threatening matter, we wanted to be able to give them like the next appointment available, whether it be physical or online. So that's what we wanted. That was our focus. Even if it was including after.
Thank you. I'm sorry, can I ask staff to mute? Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna ask your indulgence while I scroll down here to the next page that I need to ask a question about. So Commissioner Chang brought up the conceptual floor plan that you have, and I'm looking at it. Can you just walk me through how you anticipate utilizing this space?
Yeah.
I mean, I see what look to be 4 examination rooms. Is that correct?
Yes.
You have a back door and a front door. Are you going to allow people to enter the business from either door?
No. I'm only going to allow patients primarily to enter through the front door, only for patient confidentiality and in order to comply with HIPAA and to comply with patient safety and employee safety as well.
All right. What is your idea of the use of the large open space between the small office and exam rooms?
So ideally, if space does permit, I plan to create an island there in the center. You mean the center of the unit, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it would be an island, pretty much an island that would have, you know, our medications, our supplies, our IV syringes, our gauges, you know, IV tubing, emesis basins, maybe, you know, like a glucometer, a urinalysis machine, a thermometer. We would keep that equipment there and have it centralized to improve proficiency in, for both staff and the nursing staff there.
And give me an idea of the kinds of clinical services that you would be providing beyond just examination. I mean, are you going to be doing laboratory test work, x-rays, medication dispensing?
Yes. So we will be providing so I'll address everything you just mentioned. So in regards to laboratory testing, we do plan to establish accounts with local laboratories to, you know, comply with the patient's insurance or whatever is at their convenience to fill out lab slips with our account, give it to the patient and have them go and fulfill their lab work as we ordered in order to maintain like sanitation and really like make great use of our space. In terms of radiology, we have agreements with Calvin Yang Imaging, with Diagnostic Imaging, Diagnostic Medical Group Imaging, and both of which is located 5 miles west of Huntington Drive on Atlantic and Garfield, of where what our unit is located. We do plan to work with them as well, but pretty much it's patient specific. So if a patient has a preference of where they want to go for radiology, we do plan to, you know, put it in the order, give it to them, work with them on, you know, getting the results and following up with them. So pretty much we'll send them back out to get it done if needs be. And then the third one for medication dispensing, we plan to provide like a lot of hopefully high volume of e-prescriptions, and we will not be dispensing prescriptions there, but if it was something that needs to be treated like an injectable or perhaps something intravenous, we will be happy to provide that there. All within our scope of practice being an outpatient setting.
I'm sorry, did you say that you would refer out for any radiological consult?
So I'm going to give you an example. Let's just say a 12-year-old girl came in for ankle pain, right? And let's just say she slipped and fell while she was at school. You know, we would do a physical examination. We would splint, you know, and let's just say we were concerned and we were thinking, okay, you might have a fracture, you might not. We want to make sure. So we'll put in an order for an X-ray. We'll treat it like a fracture. We'll give her that splint, immobilize her ankle, give her some crutches, and then we'll have her. We'll give her a slip for her parents to take her to the radiology center to get that X-ray. That X-ray will then report. Well, after read by the radiologist, will be sent back to us, and then we will contact the patient's family and let them know of the results.
Can you describe a little bit about how you plan to manage medical waste disposal?
Yes, so pretty much that's all with a third-party service where they come and they pick up two to three times a week for medical waste disposal. They're all in these large biohazard red waste bins and that are lined with red liners as well that says biohazard, and along with the OSHA compliant garbage containers. So all of which will be safely kept within our facility until picked up by certified trained professionals to be this.
Okay. I think that's it. Actually, one last question. Your business plan seems to conclude that your proposed business would really have no competition in the immediate area. Would if that were not to be the case, would that be problematic for your business model?
Not be, it's, I don't foresee that being a problem if that were not the case. Even if there was a local competitor, let's just say already in the heart of San Marino, I don't think that would entirely discourage me from pursuing this goal of mine. This goal is fueled, it's more than just about a profit, way more than that. So I mean, it's more about purpose and my motivation behind this purpose, and being from around the area. It's just very fulfilling, and I just can't say that enough. I know I've repeated myself numerous times on this, and it's what I stand by, and I do believe my business model will has its challenges I'm well aware of, but I am more than willing to tank it on my own to along with my business partner to ride the waves and see how it goes. But yeah, I don't see it being a challenge.
Oh, you know what? I just thought of one last question.
Yeah.
On the application for the conditional use permit, the variance, you signed as the property owner, but you are in fact the business owner, correct? Not
yeah. The property owner is on the call with us as well.
Okay. That's all the questions I have, unless
Thank
there are
you.
any other questions from the commissioners.
Chair, I'm sorry, could I ask one quick question?
Please.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Do you anticipate the need for any ambulances?
So there are those very rare instances where patients are very, they would come across our care, and let's just say in the event that it was an immediate heart attack, a stroke, or anything like life-threatening that we are trained to catch right away, we would follow our due diligence and call 911 right away. Absolutely. But that's one of the best things that having an urgent care within a small community really is, because you can help rule out the big bads and really help catch, the life-threatening emergencies and really send them to where they need to be. So yeah, there may be instances where we would have to come.
Yes, Commissioner Okazaki.
I wonder, Ted, if I hope this is not an inappropriate question, but did you look at other sites in the city of San Marino for your business opportunity, or are you kind of stuck at this location and you're doing the best you can to try to utilize it? Because as I said earlier, I go to urgent care because they're very convenient. But the ones that I've been to are typically standalone facilities with ample parking. And this particular site is already short of 30 spaces, 38 spaces to be in fact. You're adjacent to other businesses with potential, if you're successful, potential line of people waiting to get in with limited parking space. And I'm just wondering if you had an opportunity to look for a more ideal space in the city of San Marino other than this site. Like I said, I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just asking that question because I worry about the shortage of parking at this location.
Absolutely, yes. So actually, I did look at 4 other locations prior with my agent, and this is the one that actually was probably most likely to work out for the plan, and it's the one that was across the street from where I grew up. And for me, I thought, oh man, this speaks to the heart. I mean, can't tell you how many times I ran away from home just to go sit at that Starbucks across the street, when my so definitely, I did check out several other locations, none of which could cooperate or was affordable, or it just didn't work out. And so this one was the best fit. It was the Cinderella shoe of urgent cares for me. And so that's why I'm giving it my all and really trying my best here. But yes, I did look at other locations, numerous.
Okay,
All right, let's, if there are no further questions for the applicant, let's move on to the public comment portion of the hearing.
Chair, it looks like Commissioner Ross has a question, and I
Oh.
think that there's, it looks like there's a representative of the applicant as well, Esteban Felix, who's had his hand raised. I do want to, before getting to that, those two gentlemen there, of course, with Commissioner Ross going first, I do want to make a couple of statements, and Marlon and I discussing this item just now. It's been clear to me that there was some very key information that was left out the application that certainly is news to staff with respect to this project. Amongst a few of them, of course, the 24-hour operations, that's never been brought up to staff during this application process. The drive-up COVID testing never been brought up to staff. The number of employees increasing, never been brought up to staff. And of course, a lot of these are incremental changes to the project, or certainly could be components of the project that are upfront. If this project were to be approved, that certainly could create some impacts to the commercial district as well as the residential districts surrounding this property. And so we fear that there's some information that was left out of this application that we certainly feel differently now with respect to this application. And so I just wanted to make that statement because I think they're important to make. And I think that that leaving out that information for staff to consider early on was certainly not beneficial at all to staff in this project. So at this point, Chair, I think Commissioner Monty Ross would like to make a statement.
Please, Commissioner Ross. You're on mute, Monty.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I respect the applicant's long-term association with the city of San Marino, but then again, we all on this commission and many others have the same long-term association and understand the parameters of what a business should be in San Marino. And I'm entirely opposed to this whole idea from the standpoint that if you're successful, it will make it very, very difficult for the citizens to park and or get around or make their way. I thought Chairman Dustin's comment about where you might have thought another location would be preferable was apropos. But the long and the short of it is, I think you're being a little short-sighted as to the success that you might have, and whether that success is going to be beneficial to the citizens or detrimental. I think the latter. Thank you.
All right, so let's move on to the public comment portion. I don't think we have any other further questions for the applicant.
Yeah, we have, looks like.
Chair, I think the applicant's representative also wanted to speak
Right.
on behalf of the
All right.
applicant.
I'm assuming that's going to be me. Good evening, everybody. First of all, I want to clarify. My name is Esteban Felix. I'm the president of a company called Insignia PMG. You've probably seen our signs all over town. I have been, for the last 20 plus years, have been doing leasing in San Marino, probably represented over 100 tenants throughout the city. Our firm also manages a lot of the buildings in San Marino, as well as on Mission and Huntington Drive. I am not the representative for Dr. Vaughn. I'm the representative for the landlord. So let me address a couple of things. As of 7 o'clock this evening, there are 27 buildings in San Marino that currently have vacancies. Of those 27, none of them are medical buildings. San Marino does not have medical buildings, nor does it have parking for medical buildings. So I want to address that because that is something that we have brought, I in particular have brought tenants or tried to bring tenants to the city of San Marino. So parking variances need to occur all the time, not only for medical use, but for restaurant use, and even in some cases for regular office use. The fact of the matter is that San Marino's parking situation is below grade to compatible cities in San Gabriel Valley. So the issue is if we want medical use in the city of San Marino, we must make variances for them. Now, I appreciate Dr. Vaughn's enthusiasm in trying to better a city that he grew up in. But the issue is one, he would not have the ability to open a 24-hour facility with the landlord's approval. He would not. I want to be clear. I can respect that he would want it to grow it to that, but at this particular location, he would not have that ability because he would need to get variance with the city and also get permission from the landlord. And at this point, that is not beneficial to the landlord at this time. So I want to be very clear about that. So with all due respect to Dr. Vaughn, I don't believe that that's a possibility.
Okay.
At this location, at this time. In regards to people waiting in line outside the door, I don't believe that is a possibility. In each single lease, regardless who writes the lease, there is always a disturbance clause. The landlord has a duty to make sure that the property is in good repair at all times and does not, other business do not infringe on other businesses. In other words, Dr. Vaughn could not have a line waiting in front of the restaurants, in front of UPS, and leading out to Starbucks. I will say that when Starbucks came to San Marino, this same question was asked. What are we going to do with the line that's going to be waiting outside of Starbucks? The fact of the matter is that there are lines, but generally speaking, they're within the property. They do not extend out. It has a way of working itself out. I also want to be very clear because there was a lot of dancing around this. This is not a surgical center. This is not a facility that things are going to be, there's not going to be open heart surgery on this location. What this is a way for people to get medical, for the community to get medical care immediately if they are not feeling well. If they need immediate emergency help, Dr. Vaughn is there to provide it and then get them to the right physician. It is not a surgical center. So I want everybody to kind of erase that from their minds because I think that's what everybody was leaning to. I want to also speak about City of San Marino. As I said, 20 years doing leasing in San Marino, managing several businesses. The city has to allow businesses to function. I certainly understand that there has to be a give and take between city and tenant and landlord. It's incredibly important because if we don't, the city will die. Literally die. COVID is helping cities realize that today. And if you don't allow these businesses to exist with variances, with rules and regulations, the city will eventually not exist. This is revenue that the city needs. This is information or services that the city needs, and it's going to benefit the city. Again, I apologize on Dr. Vaughn's behalf, but he is enthusiastic and he's ready to go and hit the pavement running. But the reality is what he's led you to believe could not happen in the lease. Just could not happen. I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Well, I think I'm off mute. I need to ask a question specific. Mr. Vong, are you actually a physician?
I'm a doctor of nursing practice, and
So
so
you-
my partner is a physician.
So you are a nurse practitioner, and calling you Dr. Vong is a misnomer, correct?
I'm a doctor of nursing practice. That is right. This is not an active. This is not a clinical setting though. So I do go by Dr. Ted Long, but it's not a clinical setting right now.
Technically, you are a nurse practitioner. You are
I
not.
am.
You are not a medical doctor. You do
No, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a nurse practitioner. Yes, that's correct. But yeah,
I
being a DNP, we go by Dr.
I
Ted
need to clarify that since Mr. Felix has referred to you as doctor, you are a nurse practitioner and you are not a medical doctor. Therefore, your title is not Dr. Vong.
Okay.
Thank you.
I ask the chair to please, let's move forward with this. The issue is a variance primarily, and we've been all over the board for 45 minutes. And I would appreciate it if we actually got to the heart of the matter.
Can we move on to public comment, please?
I don't see any.
Would like to speak. She doesn't currently have her hand raised, but she did send a message in the chat asking to give him the opportunity to speak.
Can I speak now?
Go ahead, Linda.
Hi, Linda Gutierrez and Hector Gutierrez. We're the property owners right behind this building at 2235 Ridgeway. And basically, we are totally against this variance. I find it so amazing it got this far. I am about having quality of life and safety near my house. I don't find there's enough parking space, and I would like to share some photos of what it would be, what it would look like should we have this. Could you see it? Could you see the photos? Oh wait, let me see. I'm new at this. Did you see it? Nope.
No.
Nope. Let me see, preview. Maybe I could only do one photo. Give me a second. Let me just do one photo then.
Share
Hold on.
screen.
Sorry. Oh, no. How do I do this? Okay, here we go. Screen, photo. I guess I'll have to do this one. There you go. I could only share one. Do you see that? That's the line right there. That's how it would look like.
Today.
That's today. Oh, my goodness. Sorry about that. Here we go. So I'm very concerned any of these people could just go in my yard. I've already had homeless people go in my yard, do number 2 in my yard. So I'm very concerned of my safety if we would have this urgent care. I mean, I know this individual is saying that he grew up in San Marino, but I don't believe so, because the culture is, we are okay, by the way, not to have businesses all over San Marino. I mean, the homes are very expensive. The property taxes are very expensive. I think the city is being held by that, not down Huntington. And I'd like to correct the street is not Mission, it's Sierra Madre, where that public parking is. And I also like to say to that one individual that said we needed variances, we don't need variances. If you lived in San Marino, you would say you will need variances. We don't need a lot of parking. We don't need a lot of people. We have San Gabriel, Alhambra, Arcadia. We have Pasadena. We could go to a drive. And if we needed a doctor, guess what? We could afford a doctor to come to our house. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else?
Hi, I'm Hector Gutierrez. I also have some comments.
Okay.
Go ahead, Hector. Go ahead, Hector.
Okay, thank you. Hector Gutierrez, 2235 Ridgeway. Just some of the things I like to bring up is that Starbucks is right adjacent to this building. And, you know, I've been there since 2013, and I can honestly say that almost every day there's parking in and out. And, getting a cup of coffee is not like going to urgent care. So I don't agree with the gentleman's comment about the lines outside being comparable to Starbucks. Another thing is that they opened up recently where the other restaurant was a chicken place. And that's a recent place that it isn't even open for businesses. So once that gets open, that's going to provide additional parkings that are going to be needed on that. Also in the same strip, there is the UPS, which has over 500 mailboxes. And as we all know, online delivery is only getting more practical, and it's a service that more people are using. So that's a service that's actually going up as far as people coming in to drop off returns and whatnot. Also, another point I want to make clear is the COVID, the parking. When they do swabs and other types of testing, generally, if they go back to their car, they're going to throw that trash somewhere. And if they don't find a parking spot within that parking strip, they're going to go out to the residential area, out to another parking area and leave trash out there. I mean, it happens now with Starbucks. Another thing I want to point out is that he mentioned something about e-prescriptions, which means that this may be a future pharmacy location. I mean, I don't know how that's going to work out. Someone else mentioned, did you look at other sites? I mean, there's several other locations that probably better suited for this down on Huntington. There's also a conditional use there's also a conditional use on this building. And I don't know if the owners or the applicant has actually even looked at that, because it does have limited hours and signage and whatnot to protect the residents that are nearby. One of the questions that was asked is to the applicant is, how will you deal with the additional parking needs? And he said, well, it's the medical insurance. And that made absolutely no sense to me, but I guess that makes sense to him. Let me see what else. He also mentioned he's going to have a team of doctors, and his business plans is 1 physician, 1 assistant, and a transfer. I mean, who knows how long that transfer is going to last? 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, who knows? The medical trash, that's something that small medical places always leave medical trash on the outside for someone to pick up. They have this thing that they put on the door, and it's very easy for other people that are parking there to deal with it, or it's hazardous.
Mr. Gutierrez, that's been 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, we have Sharon who would like to speak on this item. Sharon, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sharon McKay, and my residence address is 2490 Coniston Place. I've been a resident of San Marino since 2003, and I just have a hard time understanding that the parking survey wasn't done pre-COVID. We will get out of this pandemic. I don't know if it will be a matter of a few months or several months, but God willing, we will get out of this pandemic. And pre-COVID, there was not enough parking in this location. Okay, there's not enough parking for the UPS and the very popular Starbucks. And that's why people park on my neighbor's street on Ridgeway just to go into that Starbucks. This is a family-friendly, kid-friendly, central gathering location for our community. And so there are older ladies and gentlemen who meet at Starbucks regularly and have done so for years. And I hope that they will be able to do so again post-COVID. There are kids who come there. My children went to Carver. They go to Starbucks after school. The Huntington kids go to Starbucks after school. They go there on minimum days. I don't want the children of our community right next to somebody in line who's sick and infected. I just don't think this is the right choice of location. I don't think a lot of thought was put into this. I think it's a real health and safety issue when you consider how many people go into that Starbucks location, which is a central gathering place for our community, and to have, an urgent care next to it, which I've never seen. I've never heard anybody since 2003 ever say to me, why don't we have an urgent care or a medical office in San Marino? I just haven't. I haven't heard that from any of my neighbors. And I'm very concerned that the people who come into that urgent care will not be from San Marino. They will not be San Marino residents, and they will be coming and lining up right next to our children who are going to Starbucks. So I think it's really inappropriate, and it hasn't been well thought out in terms of the parking or in terms of the proximity to this particular location. And I'm very opposed to it. Thank you.
Chair, we have a comment. King Hua Chan has her name, has a hand up, as well as queued up is Kathy Hughes after. Go ahead, King Hua.
Hi, this is Marilyn and King Wei at 2320 Coniston Place. So we are actually trying to express that we're not agreeing to the proposal as well. A lot of the comments has been already shared, and we do agree that the location of the toys itself is not great. I think based on the gentleman that presented the proposal, I think there is a gap between the proposal and the reality. So, I mean, in the long term, we definitely hope that he would be successful, but then that means after we get past pandemic, the kids go back to school and that it is so close to Starbucks. And then if his business is successful, he might have patients lining up. I mean, you can definitely, this is an urgent care. You don't always make appointments. So when you get sick, you're not feeling well, you go to the doctor. And if the doctor's office is only 800 square feet, if there's not enough chairs, I would go to Starbucks to wait. So, and I think that is not really a good choice. I mean, if you look at Pasadena, I know we don't have medical building in San Marino, but if you look at medical building in Pasadena, you don't see a Starbucks in the building. So I think that is a concern. I think the choice of the location is not really great. And in terms of maybe the landlord, I understand COVID has really hit big on landlords. So maybe a lot of the retail offices are vacant right now, but I think we should still be careful in terms of what kind of business we want to bring in. So that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Kathy Hughes. You can unmute yourself and provide your comment.
Yeah, good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, good evening. First off, I would like to say, Dr. Ten Vaughn, thank you for your service. Thank you for growing up in our neighborhood. You are a medical you are not a medical doctor, but you are a doctor. I am a chief operating officer for a major health plan, and I will contract with you all day long. And so my recommendation to you is, why don't you open up a practice, a individual practice, right? Just like our dentists in town, and start there. Start there. So we are so proud of you and we're thankful to you.
Wow.
And I do want to note, I know that there's several folks on this call who have possibly more comments, but I do want to note that we did receive emails today at 5:21 and 5:57. One from Margot Manoloscu and Amy Morris, who both have expressed their objection to this project. And I know, I think I see Amy here somewhere. She can certainly provide her comments, or her email will certainly suffice for this item. I don't see any more hands raised, Chair, at this moment.
All right, then I would like to close the public comment portion of the hearing, and let's move on to Commissioner deliberation. Let's start with Commissioner Wright.
Okay, well, I probably will be in the minority on this one little thing, which has to do with the variance. To me, this is a problem that was created a long time ago, and I'm not sure that any new business that comes in has to suffer because the city gave Starbucks a good deal and allowed this whole area to have fewer parking spaces than should have been. So I could probably make the variance findings. However, I cannot make the conditional use findings. I find this this use not to be appropriate here at all. And when I look at the findings, the first finding says detrimental to health, safety, peace, morals, comfort, or general welfare of persons residing in or working in the area. And I think it has a problem with both of those. I think it is detrimental to the people working in the area who should not have to deal with people coming in and out of a medical facility, especially with urgent problems, and also definitely the neighborhood. 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, that is relentless. And we know, I think parking feeds into the conditional use issue also, that there's not enough parking for this use. I know in my case, when my kids had to go to emergency or urgent, I might have been at work, my husband might have been at work. You're talking about 3 vehicles just for one person in an emergency kind of situation. So I think there could be a lot of parking issues related to this use. I think the second finding as well for the conditional use, well, again, it's the parking mostly. And so I could not make the conditional use findings, or so could not support it from that standpoint.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Brody.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time waltzing around the main issue. Is there a variance that could be granted here? And I think this misses the boat by a country mile. And again, using that same word, and it's one of the elements that you have to find, that essentially in a variance, that and a variance is simply a minor exception to the local zoning requirements. And this is not minor at all. This is, from a parking perspective, this is a major detriment to public safety. I could not see this in any way being anything other than a special privilege, which is something that a variance does not allow. And that's all we're talking about here, essentially trashing the general plan and the ordinances behind it. For what? So this individual can establish his business next to the Starbucks. Makes no sense to me. And again, I'll just echo what was said by Jerry on the CUP. Same problem, same issue. It misses by a country mile. I couldn't approve this, and especially after what I heard, it just became even more clear to me that this should never be approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Chang.
All the comments have been made. I won't repeat what's been already stated. I will just want to say to the applicant, you know, we do appreciate the service you would like to bring to the community. However, the location is not proper and appropriate. You know, unfortunately, your success would be at the detriment of the local neighborhood and the surrounding community. And for the very reasons I brought up when I first had a Q&A with you. So for that, I cannot support this project, and I move for denial.
Commissioner Boyle.
Sorry, I was muted. Dogs. So obviously with, I just want to say with respect to Commissioner Brody's desire for brevity, which I appreciate, I think that our questions also have illuminated a lot about this business that needed to come to light. I think that the admission that the goal would be to be 24 hours with multiple doctors, it showed that it is completely inappropriate for this location, especially given the fact that the traffic study was inadequate because it was not done pre-COVID. I think I will just say to Mr. Wong, you know, being in this business for a very long time, concierge medicine and urgent care is a very different business plan. They are antithetical to one another. And so I think you need to pick one. You can't have urgent care and also have concierge medicine. It just doesn't work. I also would say that the inconsistencies between what the leasing agency and the owner want from the space versus what the tenant wants is something that is just tells me that it is bound for denial. To Mr. Felix, what I want to say is that the city has an economic development team that is very willing to work with you to help you find tenants for your buildings, medical or otherwise. They have been available for a very long time. And if you're not utilizing them, I don't think that that is the city's fault with regards to variances and ordinances. I happen to know that they are very actively trying to get businesses into this community, and they would very, very much be willing to work with you to find adequate tenants for your space that would not require all of this time spent amongst planning commission. And so with that, I will just say, if it's not obvious already, I think that this is completely inappropriate for this space. And I honestly think it's completely inappropriate that it even came before planning commission.
Thank you. Commissioner Ross.
I think it's all been said, and I really appreciate what Shelley did say, because it really made an important point that we are here to preserve some of the culture that we have lived with over these years that we do not want to see left aside, I should say. Excuse me. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Okazaki.
Yeah, as I stated earlier, most urgent care facilities that I've personally have used are standalone facilities with almost unlimited parking. And if you want to have a successful urgent care facility, I think you have to go to an area that's different than this particular location, which is already disadvantaged by the fact of Starbucks getting a special exemption from the city. When there are not enough parking there, it's just going to make it worse for not just for the urgent care business, but for everybody in the whole community, impacting the residential neighborhood, as you heard from the Gutierrez's. And so I think this is a great idea at a wrong place. So I hope that the urgent care facilities gets located in San Marino. I think that's a good thing to have, but I hope they find a better location that meets the needs of the community as well as the owner. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I won't belabor the point. I'll just say I agree with Commissioner Wright precisely. I think just due to the technical nature of a variance, I could make the findings for a variance, but not the conditional use permit. With that, I would like to ask for a motion.
Yeah, I'll move to deny variance 19-07 and its accompanying CUP as well.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Could we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Brody?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Excuse me here. Sorry, I seem to have lost my list.
Commissioner Wright, yes.
Commissioner Wright.
Commissioner Wright. Vice Chair Boyle
Yes.
and Chair Dustin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Let's move on to agenda item number 3, design review 20-73 HP at 1831 Windsor Road. Can we have the staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is an application for a new 2-story residential building along with a new 2-car garage. If the committee recalled this, a similar application at this location came before the committee back in 2019. At that time, the committee had concern about the massing of the building and some information in the historic assessment report. The applicant was directed to work with the city arborist to consider some of the replacements tree location. That original hearing was continued to a future date. Now, the applicant didn't come back in time before the required action date. So if you recall, last month, the applicant submitted a withdrawal application. So this month, the design is very similar, and I will go into the finding for this particular application, just so we're not, I wanted to provide some background so you're not confused with the prior application. This is a new application, and therefore the applicant also went to all the neighbor and show neighbors the new design and had conversation with the neighbors. So staff had provided a updated DRC map earlier this afternoon, and I want to provide an updated number for the neighborhood letters information that's located on page 3 of the staff report. So the updated number is that we have 3 approval letters from the neighbors. We have 1 objection letters, and also we have not received any response from 8 of the neighbors. Going into the staff report, staff wants to make it brief, and that the 2-story concept is acceptable, as that this is generally a 2-story neighborhood. So the idea of this particular Spanish colonial revival style and the 2-story concept is compatible with the neighborhood. However, staff is concerned with issue about the plate height, being that the first story is 9 feet 6 inches, and also the scale of this particular new home, which is a bit larger than other homes within the immediate neighborhood. Staff is unable to support the project at this time and request that the commission considering the project. The project arborist, the architect, and the historic consultant are on the call tonight and available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff? No? Okay. I just have one quick comment. I think, Eva, there's a cut and paste error on the analysis grid. It indicates the livable square area and lot coverage, which I think those figures come from agenda item number 4. Because they don't match up with what's
correct.
On. Yeah.
So the number on page 3 are incorrect. However, if you go to page 2, the numbers are listed under the background. Those are the correct figures. So the total livable area is 3535 and the total lot coverage is 2807. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If not, let's ask the applicant or the applicant's representative to make their presentation. I'm going to limit you to 10 minutes for everyone who speaks on your behalf. So please be brief. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, commissioners, members of the community. My name is Philip Chan. I'm the architect of the design. So I want to walk briefly about what happened the past 8-9 months up to this point. I would like to thank Eva and the city staff for accommodating and the commissioners for accommodating us through such hardship time for this project. Initially, we were planning to bring this project back, but because we need to work with the city arborist, and also we need to meet with him on site, and we also need to make some adjustment to the plans, we're not able to make it back on time. So for the technicality, we were advised to simply just withdraw the project and apply for a new application. So without further ado, I would like to walk you through briefly on this design that we have here. It is a Spanish style architecture. We did incorporate some of the design after the hearing from the last hearing and getting feedbacks from the members of the city, the council, and also the community, some of the feedback from the neighborhoods, from the neighbors. So this is the design that we're looking at here. Some of the modification that we did is to reduce the size of the front door and the size of the height. The second floor plate height is now at 8.5 foot. And the first floor is 9.5. And as you can see this line here, we dropped the roof line a little bit so that from a curb appeal, the mass will be reduced. In addition, we have also provided some elements that I will go over when we get to the elevation plan. So I would like to briefly point out that as you can see on the second floor, we try to keep it at the same ratio as some of the adjacent neighboring homes. So as you can see, this is the adjacent home to the south, and this is the one to the north. And I would like to briefly show you the block of Windsor. As you can see, the west side of the block and also the east side of the block, majority of the homes are 2-story. There's one story here and one across. And as you can tell, what I was referring to, I try to keep the building mass similar, aligning with the neighboring property. So that was one of the goals. Now back to the plan. The rear porch, there was a rear porch here before, so we reduced the rear porch. And in addition, we also reduced about 280, we reduced about 50 square foot of living area, 230 square feet of the porches. So around 280 square foot of mass was reduced since from the last design. And this is the neighborhood elevation. If you look at the plans on the site plan, we try to put the mass on the north side because the north side home is a 2-story home. So we try to keep the south side, the mass, limited to roughly around 15, 20 feet, which is around right here. As you can tell, this is on the second floor. The mass on the south, towards the south side gets smaller. And this is the roof plan. And there was a question about solar panel. We modified the roof design so that we can incorporate some of the roof panels without sacrificing the integrity of the design. We keep gable elements, which matches the style of the architecture. This is the Mission Clay tile that we are speccing out. These are some of the new elements. There were comments about lighting fixtures. So we spent the time to try to find a smaller size lighting fixtures that we think that it will fit in to this design. We added some gable vent elements, a little bit, giving it a little bit interesting character. Some of the details we called out, such as the double corbel that is underneath the post. So a lot of things are specced out on the plans. And side elevation. And last but not least, this is the isometric plan, waiting for it to load. The isometric plan really shows the second floor mass. What we're trying to do is to try to limit it all, towards around half, towards not occupying more than half of the property. And in addition, try to keep the mass smaller in the south side. One of the challenges, the reason why it took longer time is due to the abundance of trees on the property. There are some unhealthy trees, there are some healthy trees. There were a lot of bushes overgrown. So we took the time and effort, and we actually met with the city arborist multiple times, revising plans and to come up with a landscape plan that I think will work. And this is the material board. And I would also like to show you the inspiration. This is the house that we inspired the proposal that you have in front of here. It's on 2784 Fleur Street. The homeowner, the property owner loved this property, the look of the house, the styling of the house. So we decided to do something similar. And this is what we're proposing. I'm open to any questions any of the commissioners might have.
Does anyone have any questions for the applicant?
I do. But I feel like I spoke a lot the last time, so if somebody needs to go first, please. Nobody?
Go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Pan, are you on the line?
Yes.
Mr. Pan, I wanted to know, do you plan on having do you plan on living in this house? Owner occupied? And I should say, I want you to be truthful because
sure.
I, for one, will speak. I don't know if I can speak for all the commissioners, but I am quite exhausted by being lied to and disrespected as a member of this commission. So please answer accurately. Do you plan to live in this house?
No.
You do not. You are planning on developing it in order to flip it and sell it?
We try to develop it.
And you are planning to sell it after you develop it?
That's our original partnership purpose.
And that is currently, you said original, has anything changed? Do you plan on developing this specifically to put it back on the market to sell it?
Yes.
Thank you. My next question, I guess, I don't know if this is to Mr. Chan or Mr. Pan. When it was first before us a year ago, we had specifically asked you, because of some questions with regards to its potential historic significance, we asked you specifically for a more detailed historic report and a more detailed landscape report, and you presented us back with the same reports given in 2018 and 2019. So you did not do what we specifically had asked. Can you please tell me why that decision was made?
Yeah, sure. I do remember. I think you motioned to have the project denied at the hearing. Correct me if I'm wrong, without giving us an opportunity to respond. But luckily, it didn't get approved.
It wasn't seconded, and so it didn't go through.
So I'm glad, because I'm happy to. The reason why I asked is I'm glad to have the opportunity to do some explaining. I do have the arborist that prepared a report online here, Jeanette, and she'll be able to give you a more detailed, in depth of her report that she prepared.
No, it's not. That is not the question I asked. I'm not asking a question about the report. I'm asking. You resubmitted reports from 2018 and 2019 when it is now specifically a year later.
Yes.
We asked for new reports, and many things could have changed with regards to the landscaping, and yet a new report was not submitted. Could you please explain to me why?
And the report that you're referring to is the report that's prepared by Jeanette's office?
There was one by McKenna, I'm going to say McKenna, and then there was one by Javier Cabral's office.
Okay.
Both of them are over a year or two old, and we specifically asked for new reports.
Yes.
Can you explain to me why you did not put in new reports?
Okay. We did look into the report based on the comments that you made and made appropriate adjustment and revisions. And those reports are given to Eva and whoever's responsible to review the report. And we basically didn't hear any more feedback, what needs to be revised. So the report.
So you're saying you gave a revised report to Eva and she did not include it in this report?
Yes.
In our new packet?
The report that you have here might be dated the same day. So there might be some wording issues. The reason why I brought Jeanette on board is because she's the one that prepared the report, and I could not speak for her, the report that she prepared, nor am I qualified. I don't think I am qualified. I'm not a historian. So if you would allow me, I would like to have Jeanette to come up and speak.
Well, I guess the only question I have for Jeanette, is it your policy to make adjustments to a report and not put in a revision date?
There is a revision date. The report I submitted has a date on the front page of January of 2020.
The front page we were given says 2018.
That's the old report. The new report is dated January of 2020 and included responses and or corrections and or inclusions of additional data that were requested by the comments we received. So there is an updated report. It does have a new date, and it does include and addresses the issues that were raised earlier.
And it was done in January of 2020. I'm sorry, Eva, I hate to be
January 26, 2020.
Eva, I hate to be a stickler on this, but if it was included, it was not included in the report that I saw, it was still dated in 2018. Did you get a report for 2020?
If it was early 2020, I do not recall at this time. I apologize. Sometimes has passed since the beginning of the year.
Okay.
And I apologize. I included the incorrect and outdated assessment report with your packet.
Okay. I mean, obviously I accept that, and I just want to get the clear information.
Commissioner Shelley, I would like to add that we did take in your comments seriously. So after the hearing from last time, I did have a meeting with Jeanette, and I told her specifically to do more in-depth research. And I did believe she sat down and listened to the playback of the video. So she is aware of all the concerns that was being addressed from last time. So the reason, yeah.
So Jeanette, what I don't understand, and I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through some notes that I have, is that I understand that this house was actually, sorry, I really am trying to find my notes, but it was a I don't know how to say it, but a Milline home, and the supervisor of this company for San Marino was Percy Coward. He was very active in the area. Frank Milline did areas all over LA, and there are a number of great homes in the 20s, and they are even planning on publishing, Pasadena Heritage is planning on publishing a book on all of his homes. So based on that information, your still conclusion was this is not a historic home by any means?
First of all, none of my research identified this particular home as being specifically designed or built by those individuals.
Okay.
If it's in a record I don't have, perhaps it can be provided, but none of the permits, none of the assessor data, none of the research that I was able to complete showed a direct connection to any known architect, let alone significant architect. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, just means I don't have that data. I was not able to find that data.
Okay.
It didn't show up in the research. It doesn't show up in the city's document that was prepared in 2019. So I'm not sure where that information came from. The initial information I got was a suggestion that the house was actually occupied, built and occupied by an architect, and proven to be incorrect. The owner and the occupant was an accountant, not an architect. So if there's additional data I don't have, certainly you could provide it. Okay. But other than that, it is my professional opinion that the house itself, the design, the house itself architecturally is nice, built with some very, I don't want to use the term exceptional because I don't believe they're exceptional, very nice designs that make it what it is, that make it the Spanish colonial revival that it is. But it's not unique, it's not in great shape, it's not, doesn't have unique materials. So even if there was an association with an architect that could be attributed, this would probably not be considered one of the greater examples of his work.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I'm okay with right now with regards to my questions.
Does anyone else have questions for the applicant? I have one quick question for the designer. On the plans, there's a notation there about the intent to match the color of the chosen roof tiles with the existing tiles on the garage. I was a little confused by that because my understanding is the garage is going to be demolished and rebuilt new. So why wouldn't you use the same tile on both the main structure and the garage?
Correct. What page is it on?
I don't have the plans in front of me right now.
So initially the design, the existing structure in the back were to be kept, to remain. So that's one of the reason why. But because we need to fit in solar panel and we bring in the consultant, he made the recommendation that we should rebuild the structure due to the solar panel. So
you're not going to be salvaging any.
We are not going to be salvaging. Yes.
That's all I needed to know. Thank you. Last chance for questions for the applicant. Otherwise, let's move on to public discussion. All right. Are there any members of the public who have? Yes.
Sorry, John. Since we have the owner on board, we did talk about using salvaging some of the materials. If the board is open, we can look into, and if the owner is willing to do it, we're happy to look into reusing some of the existing material that is on the property and mix and match it, perhaps it will be a little bit difficult, but part of our profession, we do look into sustainability. So I'm glad you brought it up. And if with the consent of the owner, I am happy to explore into different options and using some of the existing materials that can be salvaged. As far as I know, some of the homes, some of the existing homes, the materials are quality materials, such as the clay roof tile. So I'm happy to look into it.
Okay. Thank you. Let's move to public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment for or against or about this project? If so, please indicate to staff now.
Does not look like there's anyone looking to make a public. Oh, excuse me. Mr. James Pappas would like to make a comment.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, let me start by saying, I grew up in San Marino my whole life. I went to the preschool at the church. I went to Carver School, Huntington School, and then to San Marino High School. And I own the property directly to the west of this project. And I had a discussion with the architect, Philip Chan, and with the changes that we had agreed on, including, I think I mentioned two about the size of the windows in the posterior. The one in the master bedroom. Philip, did you see that?
Yes. Yeah, I got your recent email.
And then the garage door relocation in the window. If the owner would agree to do those things that we had agreed to, I could support the project.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment about this proposal?
Hi, this is Kathy and David Hughes. We are the neighbors directly to the south side of the residence and just have a few questions. One of the questions is, can you explain why the pool and landscape are under separate plans?
That's a question for staff. I'll ask staff to briefly answer that question. This really is not a time for questions as much as your comments about the project, but go ahead if maybe staff could provide some background on that.
Thank you, Chair. Swimming pool are typically located outside of the home, and they are a recreational feature with no building setback because it is not a building. So therefore, they are subject to a separate permit requirement, not subject to the Planning Commission review. The only issue we are concerned about in terms of reviewing swimming pool permit is the location of the equipment setback.
Okay, so just a quick question on that. It's 5 feet from our property is where the pool is. It's right next to our bedroom on the side of the house. I'm a little bit concerned about that. And then where's the pool pump equipment? Is that going to be right next to our bedroom window?
The pool pump equipment will have the same setback as the home. So I don't envision it being at 5 feet away. It will be most likely be behind the home along with the side of the wall for efficiency in terms of providing water and as such to the swimming pool itself. However, because this is an element that is not subject to the Planning Commission purview, you can certainly speak with the architect or the homeowner in order to find a location that both parties can agree to that you feel would have the least impact on your property.
Okay, and one last question is a question about lighting. I want to make sure lighting is not into our house and our backyard. And then finally, the wall. What does the wall look like? Was not clear. How tall it's going to be, how far out it's going to be. I think that was not clear as well.
Chair, Chair Dustin, would you want me to continue to answer this
Sure,
question?
go ahead.
Okay. So I will defer the design of the wall to the architect. I believe it is a stucco block wall, meaning a solid wall. However, it is again up for discussion if you prefer that it be a solid hedge with railing. However, I believe that a solid wall will provide more, it would be more efficient in terms of reducing noise and privacy concern from your perspective. I'm sorry, I forgot the second part of your question in addition to the wall.
How far out? How far out does the wall go?
The block wall. The block wall is required to be a minimum of 2 inches away from the shared property line if you don't want the block wall to be right on it, the property line. Again, it can be closer to the adjacent property, meaning to the swimming pool, if agreed to by the property owner.
Okay, and this is the first time I'm doing this, so how do I go about finalizing this? How do we work together on this?
We can certainly have the architect and the property owner reach out to you if you're okay with that, and you can email your contact information to me, and I will coordinate the conversation with the property owner and the project architect.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other public comment? Don't see any indication, so I'm going to close. Oh, we have a raised hand for Jennifer Giles. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Dustin. This is Jennifer Giles. I live at 2290 Lorraine Road. I just wanted to bring up one point. This street has been under construction from Lorraine Road all the way up to Huntington. Every 2 or 3 houses, there is a huge construction project. There's actually currently right now 1 house on the market that started out as a development project, and it's been on the market for 175 days. It's well exceeding average price values in the neighborhood. And I just would really advise the commission to think seriously about another residential development that was thankfully, truthfully brought forth to this committee. I just feel that the neighborhood really deserves better. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other additional people wishing to speak. Eva, do you see anybody? Or so I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this, and we're going to move on to commissioner deliberations. Commissioner Brody.
Yeah, I think what's presently there, even though we don't have enough information on it, is architecturally a lot more significant in my mind than what is being proposed. My guess is it's a 12,000 plus square foot lot, and there was a smaller home on it, and it was obviously a great attraction to a developer, and that's what we're looking at here. I think I'd need a little more color on this before I would ever consider tearing it down and putting up what's being proposed.
Thank you. Commissioner Chang.
Yeah, I think the design is not a bad design. I think I do have issues with more specifically the massing. I was not a part of the Planning Commission in the initial presentation of this project, so I don't know what has or has not changed, what comments were taken or were not taken. So from what I have before me, I think the plate heights are still too high. I think the general massing is too massive and not compatible. I do feel that a 2-story home is compatible in the neighborhood. Specifically, with the inspiration home that was shown, if that was what was being placed 1 for 1, I think I'd be able to support the project. Otherwise, in its current form and iteration, I think the current plate heights, the current articulation of the front window, and how it protrudes out, I think it makes the property and project overly massive. So I would not be able to support it at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyle, or Vice Chair Boyle.
Oh, thank you. Oh, wait, am I on mute? Sorry, my cat and my dogs have all made appearances tonight, so I don't know if I'm muted or the video is over, but sorry. So, what do I like? I kind of have a lot to say. So first of all, you know, it's interesting because the applicant and the applicant's representative have constantly brought up the 2780 Floor Drive is their inspiration for that. And this is a house that I literally look at every single day. It is my neighbor's. And this house that they have designed pales in comparison to the gorgeousness of the house that I look at. I think that the staff is absolutely correct. This needs to have more community outreach. Because the owner has admitted the fact that this is going to be a development and plans to resell it, I think that that is something that needs to be included with regards to the community outreach, that the neighbors need to know that this is a house that intends to be put back on the market, especially as Ms. Giles stated, Windsor has become a street full of homes that are on the market for a very long time. In fact, as you know, I've done my research, and currently there are 17 homes on the market in San Marino that are what I would call a flip, that have been on the market for over 2 to 3 years, which means that this house will probably not sell, and the residents will be sitting amongst a slew of homes that are waiting to be sold, and vacancies, as we know, hurts property values as well as safety issues. You know, at the very least, I could allow for a continuance, but that would really be pulling an arm to do that, you know, if staff recommendations were incorporated. But for me, as always, I have to bring up the larger general discussion that, again, the homeowner has admitted that this is a development. It is planned to be developed and sold. And I think that whether we can do it, whether it is happening, it obviously it's not going to happen tonight. It probably will not happen. It will probably not be, this property might not be impacted by it, but I think that we as a community, this is what I want to say. I have a real problem with people who are not invested in our community making decisions about the overall landscape of our community by pushing homes like this through. I have a real problem with that. And I think that this is an opportunity, as has come up for quite a few years, this idea between a property that is being an investment property versus an owner-occupied property that they are building for themselves. I think that this is a general discussion that we as a community, San Marino, the city manager, the city council, we need to have a discussion about the possibility, and I'm just saying the possibility, that different regulations apply to those that are flipping homes, raising, you know, and building up new homes for their benefit and not the benefit of our community, that we have the possibility of having a general discussion of having ordinances that pertain to them that do not allow them to have maximum lot size, maximum square footage, you know, all of these things, that they are held to a different standard than owner-occupied homes. And I just want to say that again, for something being on the record. You guys know that I am one of those people that I tend to proselytize. I use this as my bully pulpit to kind of say, like, what is the direction that our community wants to be in? And this is another opportunity for us to, you know, say, what is the direction our community wants to be in? And we have all of these investment properties, and this may be the time to have city council and the city manager start really looking at our ordinances and coming up with values for development properties versus owner-occupied properties, and to really dictate what our community is going to look like, because I'm really tired of people who have no investment in our community pushing through their vision and not ours as citizens. And that's my latest
Good for you.
thing. And so that's what I want to say. I would probably push for this to be denied, but I will accept a continuance with certain conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shelley.
Commissioner Wright.
I agree specifically with Commissioner Chang and his comments. It's just too massive in all the way. I couldn't have said it better than he did. In all those ways, it's just it's too big. It's not appropriate for that lot or that street. And I just want to say, reading that letter from, and I'm sure I'm going to say the name wrong, the Golubevs, I can get on my bully pulpit and say, if there's one thing that really upsets me about what we hear at this commission, is when people say things like, we can only express our concern as developers come in and change our neighborhoods. And that's what I thought when I drove down the street today, looking at these houses that have clearly been redeveloped. And it's another street I'm adding to my list. And we keep talking about them, colleagues. We talk about Gainsborough. We talk about even, I can't believe it, Oak Knoll, beautiful Oak Knoll. We talk about some of these streets that were just so beautiful. And now we just see such a change in them. So I feel a little differently than Vice Chair Boyle. And I know this is my training as a land use lawyer. I think we'd have trouble doing what you're saying, because if we're doing our job correctly, it shouldn't matter if it's owner occupied or developer, because we need to say no. When it's too massive, we need to say no when it doesn't fit our standards and what we want to see in our community. So I, for one, am saying no to this development. It's not appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Okazaki.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody's comments. I know that the term that was used before, not specifically on this project, but San Marino worried about mansionization that occurred in Arcadia as well as in City of LA, sort of maximizing homes within certain parcels. I realized that they could build up to 3,500 square feet, but you know, as Shelley said, she lives on Fleur, and this particular house that they kind of modeled after is much smaller, maybe about 26 to 2,800 square feet. It's a beautiful house, but this house, as it's currently designed, is, to me, a little massive. So I would, at this time, support a continuation with a staff working with the developer and the architect to possibly reduce the massing a little bit more and reducing the square footage a little bit more as well to fit better into the neighborhood. And that's what I would support. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ross.
Thank you. I really appreciate what Commissioner Boyle said tonight. She's quite young. I knew her mother. I've been here in San Marino since 1944. I went to all the schools, my wife and myself. And probably the only reason I'm on this commission is because I'm so old. Anyway, the point is that you're saying it all right. We do not want to see the change that is being done and that could be done to our community by developers. So let's listen to the younger people and let's try and keep it the way it was.
Thank you. I'll try to be quick about this. So I agree with Commissioner Wright. I don't, you know, we cannot consider who owns the property when we are making these decisions. but I don't think it's necessary. I think if we, like she said, do what we're supposed to do, we can get good results regardless of who the owner is and what their motivation is for building the project. It's not just size on this house. It is size. And I think Commissioner Okazaki misspoke when he said, make a little reduction in square footage. I think a moderate to major reduction is what is required. But it's not just size. When you look at the homes on this street, they all have very specific architectural styles, and the detailing that they have on them fits with those styles. And you can tell these homes that are built more recently, and in particular, I would say it is more of a trend among homes built for development to not stick consistently with an architectural style. And that's why these homes stick out like a sore thumb. So I agree, the plate heights are still not acceptable on this home. They're not in keeping with the plate heights that you see on the street. Yes, they reduced the height of the entry door by 6 inches. I did a survey of all the entry doors in the neighborhood. They all range between 6, 7, and 7 feet, with the exception of 2 doors that are at 7, 6, and 8 foot. And both those doors look out of place in the streetscape. They are not to human scale. This home, they say it's Spanish colonial revival, but it has detailing on it that just simply does not fit that style. I appreciate the fact that they changed the termination on the chimney to at least incorporate a traditional material of the tile work, but that very cubic, boxy look is not something that you would find on a Spanish colonial revival that's built in the 20s. It's something that you would find built on a mishmash Spanish colonial revival / Mediterranean Renaissance in Newport Coast. Beautiful house, not traditional, not characteristic of the style, wouldn't fit in on this street. Again, the smooth finished stucco, that's a contemporary look. It's not compatible with the architectural style that's been chosen. All that stone cast, that cast stone work, again, that's a very modern manufactured product. I could maybe see it going in on a Mediterranean Renaissance style home. You don't see it on Spanish colonial revival. It's just not a feature. And it looks wrong to be there. The roof tiles that they list on the plans, again, they refer to Tuscany blend as the color. The manufacturer does not have a color called Tuscany blend. It's Tuscany. That needs to change on the plans because, again, the residential design guidelines specifically discourage multicolored tile blends. And this isn't a blend, and it shouldn't be called a blend because then they can fudge it later, and I don't like that. I have concerns about the privacy of the neighbor to the south with the large expanse of windows on the second floor that face the south. And that combined with the very heavy tree removal that they have planned, you're basically going to be looking right down into that neighbor to the south's backyard. And that's not a welcoming feeling, I think, for anyone. I agree with the staff. The landscape plan is not adequate. It does not properly depict the tree permit conditions. There's an olive tree proposed on the landscape plan that's planted 6 feet from the front of the house. I have an olive tree in my front yard. If you plant an olive tree 6 feet away from the foundation of your house, you're just going to be asking to remove it in 10, 15, 20 years. I know that's not your problem because you're not going to be living there, but doesn't make sense to plant a tree that grows to 20, 30 feet high and that same amount across 6 feet away from the foundation of the house. So I have major problems with this house. I kind of see room for a continuance, but on the other hand, I am very discouraged because I still had my plans from when we last looked at this house in 2019, and I compared them to what they're offering us now. I would say these are very minuscule changes, inconsequential changes. It's really sort of shifting things around, not so much making the hard decisions. So I'm not hopeful that given a continuance, they would come back with some meaningful changes. Those are my thoughts. I'm willing to hear more discussion or entertain a motion.
Let me just add something. I've had the privilege of being on this planning commission for 16 years. And we had a philosophy in the earlier iteration of that planning commission. And that was that if what was needed was the tweaking of a design, a couple of changes here and there, we would vie for the continuous route. On the other hand, if you're talking about substantial and significant changes, almost a redesign, a continuance would be off the table and it would be denial time. And I think that's what we're looking at here.
Yeah, I would say, Commissioner Brody, thank you. I was actually going to move to deny DRC 20-73 HP.
And I'll second that.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Tang,
No.
Commissioner Brody,
Yes.
Vice Chair Boyle,
Yes.
and Chair Dustin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Good.
All right, let's move on to agenda item number 4. This is conditional use permit CUP 20-07 and design review DRC 20-38 at 2150 Melville Drive. Could we have the staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This application is requesting for a single-story addition in the back of the home. And the reason why this application is in front of the committee is because the existing home is non-conforming to front yard setback, side yard setbacks, and garage dimension. The addition is along the east side of the existing structure, which has a 4-foot, 3 inches setback. The municipal codes require that whenever a home is added onto with a setback less than 5 feet, it requires a conditional use approval from this commission. So staff has provided, has found that we're able to make the required findings for the conditional use, being that this addition will not result in detrimental impact on the adjacent neighbor, mostly the east neighbor. The home will continue to be function as a single family residence and will not create traffic in a way that that is not already coming to the single family neighborhood. Staff is able to further make the required finding for the design review application, being that this addition is away from the front and will maintain the existing streetscape. It will remain as a single story home, of course, and consistent material will be utilized on this for this addition. Also, the exterior lighting are proposed. However, they are provided with seated glass, which will minimize the lighting pollution on the adjacent homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Okay, let's move on. If the applicant or the applicant's representative is available, could you please state your name and address and give us your presentation?
Well, my name is Ken Xu, and I'm the owner of 2150 Melville Drive, which is the subject of this discussion. And I should have my architect also online. And if he's there, he should be starting with the presentation. And before he starts, I've lived in San Marino for a number of years. And we bought this property. Actually, we opened escrow before end of 2019, and we closed escrow right across the new year into 2020. And we had wanted to move in as soon as we could as a family with my wife and 3 little ones. And because of COVID, City Hall shut down. So I can't tell you how excited I am to finally be in this position, in this hearing, to present, my house and my dream home to be. So, so with your blessing, we hope to be able to commence and proceed. And hopefully by Thanksgiving next year, my family and I will be able to celebrate there.
Thank you. Did the architect for this project want to add anything?
Do you mind if I text them to see if it's
Very quickly, we've still got a lot of items to cover, and so we need to keep moving.
Absolutely. I apologize. He was the one that
Let me just ask the commissioners, does anyone have any questions for the applicant after seeing the plans?
Well, based on what I know, while you're forming your questions.
Just a moment. I want to listen from the commissioners. Does anyone have questions based on the plans?
No.
No, okay. Because this is, I would like to move ahead with public discussion and then commissioner deliberation. If your architect can join us in that time, that's fine. We can come back to it. This is a fairly straightforward application. I know.
Exactly.
I think we can move ahead.
Sounds good.
Let's ask if there's any member of the public that wishes to speak for or against or about this project. I don't see any raised hands. I don't know if we've received any emails or anything. I think we're good.
I'm not seeing anything in the chat. I don't know if we've received any emails, but nothing in the chat.
Great. So I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this, and let's just move to commissioner deliberations. Commissioner Boyle.
We can't hear you.
Nope.
Sorry. I was going to say, unlike the other agenda items where I've been very verbose, this one I am not. I didn't have anything outstanding, and it seemed fine to me, and I would listen to other commissioners, if they had anything that I would take in comments from other commissioners is what I'm trying to say.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Chang.
Yes, I think the changes are not, they're all to the rear of the property, and I think they're all compatible with itself in the neighborhood. And I think it's a good addition for what's being proposed, and I'd be able to support the project.
Thank you. Commissioner Wright, or yes.
Yes, I could support the project as well, and mostly I could support this conditional use because the side yard is next to a driveway, and I think because it's next to a driveway, that reduces, limits, whatever you want to call it, the impact on the neighbor even more. And so I think continuing it on with it not being next to the house makes it even easier to approve.
Okay. Commissioner Brody.
Yeah, I agree. I think Commissioner Chang put it quite well. I could support it as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Ross. Oh,
You're muted.
You're on mute. You can
Are
give
you
us
saying I'm supposed to vote?
Just your comments.
Oh, comments. No, I have none. I like what everybody else said. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Okazaki.
I think the improvements are great for the family, and it's totally consistent, I think, with the neighborhood, and I think it's going to add value to the house. I think it's a great project.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I think it's a very tasteful addition. It respects the existing structure of the home. It's very compatible. I think Commissioner Wright pointed out very nicely that the driveway does sort of mitigate some of the closeness issues. So I don't have a problem supporting this proposal as well. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve conditional use permit number CUP 20-07 and corresponding design review number DRC 20-38.
I'll second.
We have roll call, please.
Sure. Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody,
Yes.
Vice Chair Boyle,
Yes.
and Chair Dustin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great.
Thank
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
We are going to move on to agenda item number 5, appeal of determination of tree removal permit at 850 Winthrop Road. Could we have a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This item is an appeal of a denied tree removal application by our urban forester for one sycamore tree located in the front yard. There was an additional sycamore tree that was approved that was dead, determined to be dead by an arborist as well as our city arborist. That's also a sycamore essentially right next to the other sycamore that was denied in the front yard. The arborist report that was submitted on behalf of the applicant and property owner did suggest that, again, a tree which is identified as tree T1 sycamore tree was dead, and that the other sycamore tree, also known as T2, was in severe decline with respect to an infestation of the shot-hole borer. And there was no notation that I can tell in the arborist report of any failures, but certainly there was indeed a concern from Rebecca Lotta, who is the arborist report hired by the property owner, that the tree was in severe decline. And due to the infestation of this tree and the threat towards other trees for this insect, that this tree should also be removed. There was, just to know for the Planning Commission's sake, the dead sycamore tree was, as I mentioned, granted for removal with the replacement of 4 additional trees. I did overturn the decision, being that there wasn't enough room on the property for 4 36-inch box trees. I did reduce that down to 1 36-inch heritage tree. And so in line with that recommendation and finding, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the appeal of the property owners to remove the California sycamore tree known as T2 and to replace the tree with 1 36-inch box heritage tree in the front yard area. And I open for questions.
Are there any questions for staff?
Do it.
So the plan is to remove the 2 dead sycamore, or the two sycamores, and replace with 2 36-inch box?
That's correct.
And do you know if there's any kind of, like, I'm going to call it like a preservation plan in case the other trees have been affected by this?
Sorry about that. Not that I'm aware of as far as other trees in the vicinity of these 2 trees. I did not find in the arborist report that the dead tree was infested. Of course, it could be dead because of the infestation. I don't know that. But that tree has been acted upon. But to answer your question, we don't have a sort of a mitigation plan to ensure that the surrounding other trees are going to be protected. Certainly, if the infestation of this one tree has spread to other trees in the area, the applicants would be required to supply another tree application request to the city for consideration of those individual trees.
So I guess my question is, are you concerned that there hasn't been a submittal of a mitigation plan in case there has been a threat to other trees?
Yeah, and yes, I have not received, not that that's a concern of mine. Of course, that's certainly a concern of the property owners, but I have not seen that information supplied to us.
And you're not concerned about not having that present to make this appeal? Like That's just what I want to know.
I understand.
Whether there's one in place or not, you, in terms of this appeal, are not concerned about the mitigation plan, even though Rebecca Lotta suggested that there might be a threat to other trees from this T2 infestation.
Well, I think the word concern is maybe the wrong word to say here. Of course, there is always a level of concern or heightened concern with respect to this specific insect, because it is targeting a lot of our trees. And so based off my initial inspection, there's said tree and the other tree that is dead at the moment, that I did not see any other trees in sort of the immediate vicinity of these two. And so not that I'm not concerned about not having the information, that information is not present at this time, and I can only rely on the information given to me for this one specific tree. I can have the conversation with the Millers, of course, after this meeting, to have a conversation, at least have the conversation along with our urban forester to really take a deeper dive as to how this infestation has potentially spread further than what we see on the surface.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. Would the appellant like to make a statement?
Hi, I'm Sue Miller, and this is my husband, Paul Miller, and we are the homeowners. And I think that Mr. Cervantes has already kind of laid it all out. I think it's all in the materials that the commission has. We have one dead tree, and sadly, the other tree right next to it, sycamores grow right next to each other. They're, right on top of each other. And the other one is the health of the tree was rated a D out of A through F, a scale of A through F by our arborist. And she recommended that we remove that tree too. And of course, we want to put something beautiful there that, is in keeping with the rest of our property and both of our neighbors' properties. And I think there are some pictures in the materials, and I don't think there's anything I need to add unless there are any other questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the appellant? I just had real brief. I'm just curious, how long have you been living at the property?
Since 1992, so it's 28 years.
Long time.
Okay, thank you. With that, let's open it up to public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak for or against or about this appeal request?
Chair, I do not see any raised hands at the moment.
Great. Then let's close the public comment period of the hearing, and let's move on to commissioner deliberation. Commissioner Brody.
Yeah, I think the solution that was put forth by staff is ideal. What was put forth by Mr. Cervantes, I could support.
Thank you. And let's hear from Commissioner Wright.
I agree. Beautiful home. Really loved your front yard, especially that front fence kind of.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. It just so saddens me. These sycamore trees are just so beautiful. We have some down the street that I fear for. That they will fall victim to this as well, this infestation, because they're such beautiful, although messy, but beautiful trees. So I'm sad to see them go, but I support the staff report.
Thank you. Vice Chair Boyle.
First of all, I just want to say I'm a little embarrassed as a resident of the Mission District for very much longer than the Millers. I didn't realize Winthrop kind of was a You. Anyway, I think your home is lovely, and not that that matters. I think I'm fully in support of the staff report and the removal of both of these trees. And I trust Rebecca Lotta entirely, so I know you're in good hands.
Thank you. Commissioner Chang.
Yes, I agree with all comments made, and I'd be supportive of the appeal.
Thank you. Commissioner Okazaki.
I also approve the appeal of the tree removal.
Thank you. Commissioner Ross.
Once in a while, everybody agrees, and I agree too.
Thank you. I agree as well. I have sort of a qualified agreement. I think this is important to note, the importance of our tree preservation ordinance and the requirements about proper pruning techniques. Again, I don't want to place any blame on the homeowners here, but I did a little research looking online. Google Street View is a wonderful tool. If you look at this tree back in 2007, it looks completely different. It's very full, and there are major branches coming off of the main trunk quite low. Somewhere between 2007 and 2011, it was, in addition to it, but all the sycamores, the two in the front yard and the one in the back, were basically severely pruned, and so that they were lopped off the top, and you see a lot of new growth coming out in clumps at the tops of the trees, which one totally changed the characteristic of the tree, but I think makes it more susceptible to this sort of invasive shothole borer, because you get all this tertiary growth, which is what these beetles like to lay their eggs in, as opposed to the more substantial scaffolding branches that were all removed. So I think this is a good example of why we need to follow our tree protection ordinance quite rigorously. But in this particular situation, I would agree, those trees are not salvageable, and it is a very tight property. It is quite lovely in the canopy that it has. So there really isn't room for that quantity of trees that was in the original permit. And I think that staff's accommodation is reasonable. So I could also approve this. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the appeal of the tree removal permit at 850 Winthrop Road.
Per the conditions suggested by staff?
Yes, thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody,
Yes.
Vice Chair Boyle,
Yes.
Chair Destin.
Yes. Great. Let's move on to agenda item number 6. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's that?
Is it an oncoming train?
Yeah, might be. Discussion regarding public hearing notice requirements. Oh, a topic near and dear to all our hearts.
Oh, man.
True.
Hey, Jerry, why don't we just apply the PAGA requirement to this? Jerry probably knows what I'm talking about. And that's have a declaration by the applicant that they sent out certified letters to people within the 300 foot radius outlining the basics of the application, and then inviting them to review the plans at mutually convenient times, and putting out a number where they can call the architect or something like that, I think would be important. But if we had a declaration, a form declaration saying that I've done all this, and append as an exhibit the certified mailings, I think that would solve a lot of the problems.
So you're kind of talking about a combination of, because for me, I don't know, a lot of people ignore even certified mail, but I do like it when it's combined with, you know, let's talk about it. Let's get a visit. Because I do like right now the requirement that, you know, you visit them. You make sure you try to see them eye to eye. And I love the idea of having them sign the plans, personally.
That's a good idea too. But I think, you know, not everyone knows within a 300-foot radius who the individuals are. You don't know everybody.
Well, 300 feet would probably be too large for, you know, visiting. That probably have to be, I don't know.
Neighborhood.
Well,
Don't
wait,
you think? Yeah.
I'm sorry, what, like, if 300 feet is how many houses?
The certified mail. Well, that depends, of course, on how big the lots are. You know, what zone we're talking about, I suppose.
So here's my question, because I kind of like that idea, Howard, but who would you address those letters to? To the address in the legal neighborhood or to the address of the legal owner of record? Or
no,
both?
I wouldn't go that far, just occupant and the particular address number. Like, you know, 125 Main Street, occupant. And that's about as good as it gets. I don't think you have to make them go that extra mile. You're kind of doing it with the certified letter. And you're having a declaration and you get a receipt for the certification, which you can attach. So the people can't complain and say, I never received anything. Oh, yes, you did. Here's the certified receipt.
But wait, Howard, are they getting a letter that changes are happening, or are they getting an actual like a scaled down copy of the plans as well? Because
No. Yeah, that would be too much. This is a letter saying I'm going from a 1-story to a 2-story, and you're welcome to look at the plans. It's available from X date to X date, that type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that I really like the idea of the neighbor, whoever we decide is the legal neighbors, whoever decides needs to see them. I like the idea of them actually signing off, like if they approve signing off that they've actually seen the plans.
So where do they sign?
This is the thing, you know, is there like a master, you know, like shortened thing that the homeowner or the developer, you know,
as long as I've been doing this
door to door and
I think staff had a good idea. We can ask staff. I think staff had a good idea about how they would sign the plans, because I forget, Director Cervantes.
Yeah, so first of all, a lot of what we do now is of course dictated by the code, of course, in that for example, design review items only require public hearing notices to the legal neighborhood, which could range from 10 to 12 properties. And as far as the argument that property owners don't know who their neighbors are and don't know how to find that, well, there's third-party vendors out there who are courier services who specialize in this exact thing. They can, number one, provide the envelopes, they can provide the mailing addresses, and they can actually deliver the notices to the neighbors with a charge, of course, but the charge is fairly minimal. And so with respect to the plans, my long-standing solution for this for a long time now was to circulate one set of plans to all these neighbors where the cover sheet provides a dedicated box where the applicants, or not applicants, but the neighbors would actually sign inside that box, indicating that they've reviewed the plans. It's not I've approved the plans, it's that I've reviewed the set of drawings. Because that's the misconception here, is that we don't want folks to think that they're approving plans by signing them. And so it's got, go ahead, Howard, go ahead.
No, but the reality is, and I've seen it a number of times, they're saying, I don't want to sign that. I know what you're telling me. I just don't want my signature on that, because it's going to lead other people to maybe think I'm approving it. So no, I'm not going to sign it.
Right, and a lot of folks don't sign our approval and objection letter because they don't want to be bothered. They don't want to sign something. They don't want to sign a document, and so that's, of course, that's a sign of the times currently. That's always been my experience with dealing with this process, is that people just don't want to sign or deal with people, and so. Right now, just so the group understands, when a property owner or applicant goes through this notification process, they are required to submit a letter to the city that is signed under penalty of perjury that they actually did the mailing. And so I'm not sure if that's similar to the declaration Howard was mentioning, but we can certainly take it a step further and look to develop a declaration along with the signature of penalty under perjury, and then include a requirement that that whatever gets mailed out to the property owners includes plans, a set date for a meeting, and also certified mail.
Director Cervantes, I'm just really curious. Have you guys ever done a survey of what other communities do, like Arcadia,
Yeah.
like our, within our boundaries, like what they do in terms of notification and what they have claimed has worked or not?
Well, a lot of our surrounding cities don't have well, I would say this, that the common theme for us and other cities around us is that there is a public hearing notice provision. And so some of them are 10 days, others are 15 days. The amount of days given for the notice to the public varies. And so that is a fairly constant thing. The other fairly constant thing is the 300-foot radius mailer. That is a very typical process that other cities surrounding us do, and actually mostly every city in Southern California does the same thing. We are a little bit different in respect to, we go a little bit further, and I'll explain how we do that. Going back to the argument of Vice Chair Boyle, what you said, well, how many properties are 300 feet? And so the council recognized that several years ago and increased for the estate areas from 300 to a 500-foot radius. And that was meant to capture more properties. And so we have a 300-foot radius provision for several districts and a 500-foot radius for the estate areas. What we also do differently from other cities is we have what we have the legal neighborhood process. And that includes, of course, the notification process. That's the prerequisite, I guess, for lack of a better word, of having the applicants circulate information to the public prior to getting on the agenda. And so that is a very unique process that only we do, and that I have not seen in other cities. And so we have, plus of course, requiring the signature under penalty of perjury, we require that that's beyond from what other cities do. Now, in addition to that, yeah.
You said something about the mailings. So that's when the applicant provides city staff with the pre-addressed envelopes for people in the legal neighborhood?
Yeah, part of the process is when somebody applies for a design review, in the first 30 days of having the application, we review the plans. And then after, before 30 days comes, we supply the applicant with a letter, what we call a correction letter or correction notice. And typically they're between 15 and 30 corrections deep. One of the last corrections in there is to supply us with mailing envelopes, as well as going around to the legal neighborhood to share the project with the neighbors. And so prior to getting on the agenda, they're going to satisfy those 15 to 30 items in that correction letter, including the neighborhood outreach process. And so prior to deeming a project complete, we of course need to see the 15 to 30 items addressed on the plans, but we also need to see that we have the signed letter that they went about going through the process, signed on the penalty of perjury. And we also require every single approval and objection letter to be submitted back to the staff, indicating whether they've obtained the signature of the property owner, or are showing 2 attempts that they've made during 2 different days at 2 different times that they, of course, reached out to the property owners.
So I'm
And of course,
not
if it's
getting, I get that part, the reach out part. I'm not getting what happens with the envelopes.
Yeah, so what happens with the envelopes is we take those envelopes and we stuff them with our notice. So we draft an additional notice that explains that we have plans. It gives a little description of the project. It basically invites the neighbors to come into the city to look at the drawings and to look at the information. It gives the date and time of the meeting. And so we have a notice that goes into those envelopes, and we mail those envelopes out to the legal neighborhood or 300-foot radius or 500-foot radius.
So what you're saying is, like, if I were to do a project at my house that required notification, I would have to bring you, I would have to bring you stamped envelopes
Right,
with my neighbor's information
Right.
already filled in,
right,
and then you would just be stuffing them.
right.
Okay, but that still does not provide the neighbors with the drawings. It just invites them to view the drawings.
Right.
So now I have heard that Arcadia, like, they actually have a section in their drawings where neighbors have to actually sign whether they approve or not. Like, I don't know what kind of administrative, cost that would be per se, but
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
is that, I mean,
It wouldn't be an administrative cost to the city. We would require that of the applicant
Right.
to obtain that information. And I've not heard of that. And certainly it's kind of what we're talking about now is circulating a set of drawings and getting the neighbors to sign off on those drawings. Of course, as Howard had mentioned, and I agree with that, certain folks just don't want to sign documents. A fear of the misconception or the thought that they're approving the project when in fact they're not, and so they're likely gonna shy away from that process.
And I think that's the bigger problem, if I can just jump in, commissioners, and the one that troubles me so much is just the overall, the enforcement of this is very difficult, obviously, but the inconsistency of it. Tonight we had a project, and I don't think it should go unnoticed. It is the one where the developer honestly said he was not going to live in the property. He was going to flip it. And here's one that we have, I think it was 9 no responses. Okay, 9 no responses and 2 responses. I think 1 yes, 1 no. We had that project, if you recall, on Lorraine, where it was something like 12 people came and supported. All right. So there's something happening. I think it's called knowing your neighbors. And we can't legislate that. You can't legislate knowing your neighbors, be a good neighbor, say hi to your neighbor.
Well, and that, oh, go ahead.
No, Shelley, go ahead. You first.
Well, I mean, because Commissioner Wright, you bring up the one thing that I kind of said in terms of if it were going to be continued, that the property on Windsor, if it were be continued, one of the conditions that I would have said is that I think that we need, not only does there need to be proper notification of the neighbors, but it also, because the applicant was transparent about the fact that it was intended to be a development, I think that is something else that the neighborhood needs to know. This is not being developed by somebody who wants to be a part of your community. And I know that that's a very fine line, and we need, I don't know how we can even enforce that or, whatever, but I think that that is something that is also a value that, I know all of my neighbors. We are on a text chain with one another. If I had to inform all of them, I could do that. And so I do think that that is something about
What are you doing?
I don't know what I'm trying to say, except for the fact that I think that, you're right. There is something very telling between the properties that we have seen historically that have no responses. We can I could say, we could tend to argue that those are more investment property notifications as opposed to a real neighbor knowing their community. And
right. So maybe if Right, so maybe if we require them to, like, I think it was Commissioner Brody who said it, but I'm sorry if I'm getting everybody mixed up. But to require on this certified mailing a date and a time, a place.
Right.
We're, this is where we're meeting to discuss this. There will be plans to review. But you can't make them go, right?
Of course you can.
I guess that's my frustration. How do we get people more invested?
There are some people, and we all know it, that when it comes to putting together an opposition, they're not going to do it. They're kind of shrinking violets, and they have let George do it. Let those people at City Hall deal with it.
Let Shelley do it.
Let Shelley do it. Or let Jerry do it. Let them give the bad news to my neighbor. I don't want to give the bad news to my neighbor. And there are people like that.
And just to also let the group know that whenever a project is continued, we also notice for that item as well. And so if the project is continued, we go about using city resources, city time to send out an additional notice that the item was continued to a specific date and time. We'll also provide description of the project again. And so that's something different that we do that other cities don't do as well. So there is a vast amount of notification procedures that we have currently. And
and I think that's great, but when you do that, do you indicate the changes or
no, it doesn't get specific as to what has changed. And of course, we can certainly do that. We're trying to, of course, fit everything on one page because, you put too much information on there, they're not going to read it.
No, agreed. You're telling them, again, come view, come ask us, if you want, because a lot of people probably just think, somebody wasn't there and it was continued, not realizing that it really, there's some significant changes. Maybe just a sentence that says, there are changes or there expect to be changes, or when it's continued, if you're doing the continuation date, there should have already been the changes. So maybe something that indicates at least that it is changes.
Sorry, I was just going to say, oh, look at this, Good Neighbor Guide to Design.
I love it.
Yeah, I wanted to share this with, so I put this together about several months ago. We haven't really distributed this yet, but it's something that essentially helps applicants, guide them through, being good neighbors, or at least a property owner guiding them towards being good neighbors. It talks about, how to reach. It talks about how to reach out to your neighbors. What's, being transparent, being consistent, being respectful in dialogue, good faith efforts, that kind of thing. And so we're going to start handing this document out because with the primary intention of letting applicants start to realize that there's some value in reaching out to your property owners or the neighbors to gain good design. It does get into a little bit of accountability on the neighbor side where they need to be part of the process as well and be open-minded to these projects because as we all know, applicants and property owners have the right to develop their properties, and so there's that part of it. So this is a pretty good guide that I think is worthwhile really diving into, giving it out to the public and to applicants as soon as they apply for projects, that this is what's expected of them in terms of being good neighbors, being transparent, sharing the project in full detail, and to really hashing out any issues that neighbors are going to have with respect to the project, privacy issues, design issues, that kind of thing. So I wanted to share this with you guys, at least that there's something out there that we can start using.
This is a really good idea because, and they should be motivated because it will save them time and money to be ahead of the game going into it.
Well, and I know I'm just going to say Aldo is at the very least the person sick of me saying this, but this is all well and good. I think whatever our ultimate plan is, we need to get Zane Hill to do a very extensive article, not just about what the rules and regulations are, or not the rules and regulations, but what we're asking our neighbors to do, but the importance of doing it. We need to have a marketing strategy as it pertains to getting the word out there through the San Marino Tribune, social media, whatever it is. It can't just be posted on the website because that's not going to get people to look at it.
Right.
We need to really have editorials in the Tribune to involve the neighbors, for them to really understand why it's important for them to respond to these letters. Like, you're unhappy about you're unhappy about what's happening to your town, but you're not responding to these letters. You're not actually, you get the letters and you're not looking at the designs and making feedback. Like, not to make them feel wrong about what they're doing, but just kind of say like, look, it's kind of like, if you're not going to be involved, you don't have the right to complain. I mean, they will always complain, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like,
Yeah, I get it.
At least whatever we decide, have a strong strategy that gets out to the community in the same way that the tree preservation and blah, blah, blah.
The whole idea is that you're putting the legal neighborhood on notice. If the individual homeowner, and I'm sure most of them do care, but if there's one or two or three who do not care to involve themselves, it's on them. We have done as much as we could at that point.
Yeah.
And of
Yeah,
course,
I guess that's
there's
the question, right? That's where we are right now. Have we done it? But you're right. We have the boards now. We've got the flags now. We've got the mail notices. I guess, again, I'm repeating myself, but that's my frustration. Why don't people care?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up that point about the poster boards. That was, aimed to gather, walking or pedestrian traffic. Those don't get notified, which could easily be, 3 houses down from the project site. As they walk the street, as they do, they see the poster board, they get involved. And so when you don't see participation, when you have all these efforts out there, it is a little concerning.
Well, that's human nature, and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
The whole idea is that we're going the extra mile to make sure that they're notified.
Right.
The fact that some people, and I've seen it, I'm sure you have too, Aldo, they don't complain until the thing starts to go up.
Oh yeah, that's
what the heck is going on here?
Common, yeah, that's common.
I mean, but I know we're going round in circles, but that is kind of the question, like, what is going to make people pay attention?
That was her mother and I were on the same program.
And so
Aldo,
No, don't worry about that.
Aldo, that's my question, I guess, at this point.
Yeah.
This discussion we're having, where do we go next with it? Is just
generate
topics to go to city council, or
well, let me talk about next steps here. There are some ideas here that excitingly don't require a code amendment, and so we can actually go down a process now and require applicants to go down the process that we make them go down. And so we have a code that is drafted so well that it allows for us to ask for things that are not specifically specified in the code. And so we're going to require certified mailers, if we're going to require a declaration, if we're going to require the delivery of plans or a specific meeting, we can do that without the code being changed. And so the way I'm going to take this feedback is essentially start putting together a game plan to make this stuff really start working for us. And so the continuance notice, for example, the notices that go out for continuances, if we can throw in these are the amendments to the project, then I think that could also be done without a code amendment. So these are ideas that we can hit the ground running right away.
Right.
Although I'm curious, what about, and what does the commission feel like this? Like, what, aside from a certified email or letter to everybody, what if it's also includes, what if the applicants have to actually include 2 envelopes per household, 1 envelope that goes to them that's certified and another envelope that is put inside with like a form that the resident has to say, because if the problem is that nobody puts their like signature on another form that somebody else might see and think that means that they're approving, that there might be a form in there that says, I approve this or I deny, it's anonymous, and then they can put that form into an envelope that goes to City Hall that is stamped and paid for by the applicant so that it's done in an anonymous way. So the applicant has to provide 2 emails, one that would be the certified mail going to their legal neighborhood, and one envelope that goes inside with a form with their.
Yeah, it's a return envelope. Yeah. No, we can do that. I mean, that's if the group feels that that's doable, we can add that on there.
Do we think that is a problem? People don't want to be on record?
Yes.
I'm sure it is, but I have a problem with anonymous feedback.
Well, and I guess I don't mean anonymous to us. I mean anonymous to their neighbors. Like they would have to put like, I'm at 2784 Fleur Drive, right? But I wouldn't know, like I'm not handing out, I'm not going neighbor to neighbor going, do you agree with this sign here? Where all of the other neighbors signed.
Okay, that works. Yeah, I would like to see some sort of a declaration and some sort of a tract mailing. Those to me, those are the 2 big issues.
Okay, got it.
So have we talked this to death, or does it?
I've got my direction.
Let's move on to the resolution.
Good.
Yeah, let's get the
right.
resolution. Yeah, this is good enough for me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so let's move on to agenda item number 7, resolution of findings, CUP 2005, 2016, and DRC 2029 HP at 2404 Mission Street. Jerry?
Okay, I know, I found some typos, but now my computer's messing up, so I hope my notes will be good. Section 3B, the last sentence has a typo. It should be designed as. I hope somebody else has that so they know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right, then 3D, as in David, is located directly adjacent to the street. There's like 2, the is in the wrong spot, or there's 2 is. This computer. Oh wait, here I am. I got it back. Let me see if I can understand my my note to myself. Okay, okay, I don't think that's right. How do you like that? Just 3B. Oh, because I'm in the wrong spot. See, I'm not doing good. D-E. All right, I'm not in the right spot. I'm sorry. I have also E, but if you can't understand that one, and I can go give it to Aldo later once I can get my stuff back on. But and then E, it has one of the windows is located, and right now it says at the one of. Do you see that on 3E?
Okay, got it.
Okay, so that's what I have, but I can't find the D. I'm gonna have to see if I can figure that out. So with those changes, and I'll give you the other one once I figure it out.
But it's under D, right? That is.
Yeah, it's under D, 3D. So we'll be able to figure that one out.
I can figure it out. Or
there's something with an is.
Okay, I know that. I know it down.
Okay.
Where are you? I don't know where that is. Go back. Sorry guys.
So do you want to prove it with those changes?
Yeah, that's fine.
I think on section 5, I think on the A's and O's, I think I was the sole no on,
You're
on the.
okay.
Ooh,
That's correct.
That is correct.
Okay,
That's
so I just
important.
want to make sure that, yeah, okay. Good thing I remember, everyone else remembered too.
I remember.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was the only change I noted.
Okay.
Does that mean we can't approve or deny this
you
until?
No, with the
Yeah.
change, we can,
No, we're gonna.
with the change noted, right?
Just approve as amended.
No, I don't.
Is there a motion?
So do
So-
we have a motion?
I approve, or wait, I move to approve resolution number PCR 20-10. Can
I'll
it be?
second.
Thank you.
As amended.
As amended.
As amended, yeah.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody,
Yes,
Vice Chair Boyle,
Yes.
Chair Dustin.
Yes. And agenda item number 8, resolution of findings, conditional use permits, CUP 2004 and DRC 2062 at 2950 Wallingford. I didn't see anything in this, but I bet Jerry did.
Well, I know, but look what I'm known for. This is terrible. Okay, I did have a question because on 3D, as in David, it says the proposed exterior materials and finished are inconsistent.
Finishes.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it supposed to say that? That doesn't make sense to me.
Finishes.
Finishes.
Yeah.
So what should it say?
Finishes.
Finishes.
Oh,
S
got it.
instead of
Good.
D.
All right, good. I'm not crazy. All right, so that should be that should be amended.
Great. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve as amended.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody,
Yes,
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Vice Chair Boyle,
Yes.
Chair Dustin.
Yes. And last but not least, agenda item number 9, resolution of findings, CUP 20-09, CUP 20-15, and DRC 20-47 and DRC 20-50 at 1161 Virginia Road.
Okay, now I just want you to know, if people appeal these things, we need our findings to be perfect, okay? That's why I'm so weird about this. All right, so this one, I have to defend myself. Okay, 3A, the proposed addition is incompatible and inconsistent with the scale of development existing in the legal neighborhood.
Yes.
3B. Okay, this is really picky, so you can feel free to ignore this one, but I couldn't follow. Section 3B, the first and second floors addition. Do we mean the first and second floor additions?
Yeah.
But I don't really
Yes.
care. I don't really
Yes.
care.
Yes.
And then D as in David, 3D, again, finishes.
Yes.
The proposed exterior materials and finishes. So those are my changes.
Okay.
I move to approve as amended.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody,
yes,
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Vice Chair Boyle,
Yes.
and Chair Dustin.
Yes.
Point of information.
Yes.
I don't remember which board meeting it was, but a couple of board meetings back, there was a request that the staff notify the board if and when there was an appeal of a previously approved or denied resolution.
Yeah,
Is that in place?
Yeah, Commissioner, you beat me to the punch. I was going to mention one. So
Good.
1315 San Gabriel Boulevard was appealed. That was a construction of a single-story house with a basement that was appealed. And
By a neighbor, correct?
not by a neighbor.
Not a neighbor, just a concerned resident.
Concerned resident.
Thank you.
Or
Uh,
overly
went be-
president.
Yeah, it went before the city council last couple weeks ago, and the city council upheld the decision of the planning commission. So the approval of the project stands, and now the applicant can certainly move forward with that project and obtain permits.
Good.
Lastly, the denial of the artificial turf on Bradbury was appealed to the city council. And so that will be before the city council likely in the new year, not in December.
And Director Cervantes, I heard St. Albans is coming before us again, as well as Oak Knoll, right?
Yeah, not until the new year though. They're not ready.
Okay.
The other artificial turf one on Roanoke was removed and replaced.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's all I have.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. See you in the
Thank
new
you.
year.
Bye-bye.
Let's hope 2021 is better.
can't be any worse.
Can't be any.
Oh God, you just jinxed it, John.
Yes.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.